maps. I've got 2 monitors with 6 windows now.
Oh my gosh.
So in one window I have Twitch, in one window I have Zoom, and then in one I have Discord, and the others I have Greyhawk Maps and
Oh, good.
Lore.
I was a little worried it wasn't going to pop up.
Wow, that's nice.
And Captain Bluffett, that's awesome. Yep.
I actually got the Twitch on my tablet in front of me with the, my screen looking at the Zoom with you guys.
Yeah. That's the way to do it.
Yep.
I mean, I could probably have both going, but my computer is getting old. It's about 10 years old.
Yeah, it's good to put it on. Like I have mine on another medium as well. I gotta check something.
Yeah, and it might clog your internet connection.
Well,
It's
just
really
I just can't be. For me, I can't be too careful.
Yeah.
With getting
because you
resources.
stream it and-
I got a monster machine, but what's up? Yes, Big Mac Titan Dice. Gave out 2 sets on Saturday.
Yep. Hi, David.
So.
Yeah, so I have a pretty good internet connection. So it's I think 200 megs upload and download. Or
Well, that's it. That is good.
That's good. Yeah.
Actually, well, that's what the test says, but I can actually go further than that. But the problem is my desktop itself is older, so.
Cannibal, hi. Well, he can't see me yet, so I can. I was waving. That's kind of too early for that. So hey, good to see you again.
I was chatting with him last night.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's a Navy vet.
Oh, awesome.
He's been on submarines, so he's really trying to make the land of black ice and the Brink Islands his own up there.
Oh,
Big surprise tonight, Big Mac. Who we got tonight? We got. I'll wait till we'll wait to make the announcements on the show. So you'll see. We got some.
Yar, yep.
Yar. So I got some new music playing and a lot of the stuff tonight. So.
You know, you could do almost all your research just on Greyhawkery.
A lot of it. That would be cheating, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah. That's too easy.
I don't mind cheating occasionally. I
You
got
know,
a lot
the-
of
Part of being DM.
The sea power that gets the least love in terms of camp.
It's got to be
And
it's got to be the ones that sold out to the Sea Princes. I mean, to the Scarlet Brotherhood.
No, the Sea Barons, I think, are the
Oh,
least.
Sea Barons.
Yeah.
They're the
Kind of
Iridian.
forgotten up there.
They're Iridians, but they tend to behave like pirates sometimes.
I turn these down, the next two down a little bit on sound. It's the dude who's been helping to overhaul cannon fire. Thanks for doing that.
Oh, that's me.
You're the dude now. Yeah.
Yep.
You're the dude. So you are the dude from
I prefer the swell.
the Big Lebowski, the Big Sulbowski. Oh man. So guys, I am sweating a little bit and panting a little bit because I was rushing getting all my snow shoveling done. So, Mike, did you get hit at all with anything? No?
Just a little.
Just ice? Okay.
Barely that.
It was terribly cold here this morning. It was below 50. Yeah, it was terribly cold.
Yeah, my mom was telling me the other day that she had the worst night ever. I said, why? What happened? I was like, oh, it was so cold. And I was like, and then I went to weather.com and I was like, it was 42.
Yep. That's probably what we had like 4 o'clock this morning. Probably like 45, 46.
It's like technically it was colder in Austin overnight at 38, but
yes,
it's all of what you get used to.
Yeah, I went out to take pictures of the sunrise this morning. I don't know how John said he's telling us sunrise.
3 to 4 here, but it turned to sleet and ice and all. It's really gross, so I had to get it up before it froze overnight. So
Mike, I hope you don't mind, but I sent Jay a copy of your Densec Gulf map.
I got a lot of his maps up.
Yeah.
Right from his Greyhawkery site, just like you said, pilfered right off of it. Mike
Where
is.
was the pirates?
What's that?
We're a bunch of pirates. We pilfer sight.
Exactly. Tally ho. Definitely. Yeah.
So David's talking about how the Thames used to freeze over. Here in Montreal, we have snow bridges. So in winter, when it freezes, or ice bridges, when it freezes over, we drive cars across rivers.
Yep, they open official roads across big lakes, and they even allow trucks to go to deliver timber in winter. So they cut it down in the summer, and then when winter comes, they drive across the rivers. And it's kind of amazing when you stand in the middle of the lake and then drive heavy vehicles. The whole ice bulged up and down. It's like an earthquake.
Yeah.
And it crashes. You think like the whole thing is going to break, but it doesn't. So it's amazing. I've been driving a lot of cars on ice. It's kind of awesome that you really mess around and then you just one of these snow drifts on the sides, so you can experiment a lot with driving fast and have fun.
Yep.
We were talking last night that the whole Soul Barbarian Peninsula up there is actually further south than most of Scandinavia.
Oh yeah.
So in theory, it's not as cold. But
the water, there's no water on the western side like there is in Scandinavia, right? So
Scandinavia is warm. Scandinavia would be frozen even worse, or as bad as Alaska, or even better, or even worse if it weren't for the ocean. So that kind of works.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah. So the ocean stream can really affect how cold it is. But it's true. But the other thing is that the Earth has a higher actual tilt, which means that the winters will go severe further south, so to speak. So the summers will be warmer and the winter will be colder. So the seasons.
Tomorrow night, Casey. Tomorrow night.
Although I doubt they were that prescient, but it does seem like that kind of axial tilt will extend the summers and springs, which is kind of what it looks like Gygax did in that table. So I don't know if he had some expert opinion about that.
Might be, yeah.
But it seems like because basically what happens because of the tilt, you don't spend as much time in winter because you're already starting to come down faster.
Okay. I guess that depends on actual position.
Well, we're still assuming 364 days.
Oh, okay.
So
24 hours. Yeah. Fortunately, it seems like we're too perfect.
Yeah, things are just going the same rhythm every year. So it's magic. Which means that it can be uploaded by some gods.
we're close to a start here, and let's hit to this raid. The raid came in already? Oh my! I better get going then. So this song is entitled from my Dark Fantasy Studios Buccaneers. It's an entry screen music score.
Kick down the video quality to the lowest. So, Rich, one of the things, I don't know if you can get used to, but is that what the people see in the chat is not the same thing we see on the screen.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking, like I said, I got my tablet open in front of me, so I have the tablet on my
Coming on.
Although whatever is shown on Mike's,
Whoops, that was
on Jay's Zoom is whatnot.
Yeah. I didn't mean to do my own shout out there. I thought that was the button to come to this screen. Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for the raid. Wow, that is fantastic and awesome. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. I'm Jay Kilorkazumba, and tonight I'm really looking forward to this show tonight. This is one of my favorite topics in the world of Greyhawk that I don't think gets enough love. So we have our usual hosts, co-hosts. We have the great Anna Meyer and the wonderful, and this is his wheelhouse. This is his ultimate wheelhouse, Greyhawk Mike Bridges. So
Welcome aboard, everybody.
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Yes. And joining us, normally not joining us right when the show starts, so we feel honored tonight. And Casey's already busted on you there, Gary. But Gary Hoy and Pluffett Smedger is with us tonight.
Hey, everybody. Well, you already had a full house on Sunday.
Yeah, it's okay. It was
Casey,
good.
I mean,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it was and that was another good topic. And please, you all should know this person, and welcome for the first time. If you do not know who Richard Dioya is, did I say that right, Richard?
Correct. That's it.
You will know him as Longitalos or Rich D, depending on what Discord you're on. So, for the first time, welcome to the show, Richard Longitalos. Thank you for being on tonight.
He's probably browbeating you for a postcard recently.
He probably will browbeat me after the show tonight. I got 2 to go. I got County and Dutch Uvula. County's coming next, promise. So thank you all for coming on tonight, and we're gonna bounce all over the place on this topic. There's a lot of ocean and seas and bays in Greyhawk, right? There's more of that than there is land masses. And I just don't, for some of us, it gets some attention. I love sea battles. For some of us, it gets a lot of attention, like Mike with Sea Princes. And for a lot of us, though, I bet it gets no attention. Because it's not easy to do a sea-based campaign. Ship combat, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So what are your thoughts, Mike? Let's start with the new guy, Richard. What are your general thoughts on sea-based adventuring and combat in Greyhawk?
I actually love it. So I had a Buccaneer game started a couple of years ago. It ran for about a year and a half. And the nice thing about it is you could do the old Star Trek thing, right? You visit from island to island or seaport to seaport, and you do like a one session, a new island every week. Or you could do underwater adventures, or like you said, you could do naval battles. So once you get onto the boat, the whole Flanaess is open to you. You can travel anywhere you want and have any kind of adventure you want. And then you could have a lot of fun. What I did was I jumped off from the Ghost of Saltmarsh type, I modified it a bit, type campaign. And after they saved the lizard men, they actually recruited 6 of them to be crew members on their ship. So they were actually traveling along with this ship of ex-slaves who were sailors who helped manage the ship, and a bunch of lizard men as their muscle. So the party went along from island to island with these 6 lizard men who could help them out. So you could go any direction on sea battles. It's really, really fabulous.
There's potential, and hopefully we'll unlock some of that for a lot of the crew that's either you play in the game or you DM in the game. There's a huge amount of potential for it. And I'm excited about this. I know there's stuff I don't know, and I want to learn. I want to learn beyond. Like, I'm an expert on Harby gaming, Harby and Woolly Bay, but that's about it when it comes to sea-based. I don't go outside of that bay for the most part.
Well,
Gary,
you go right there.
What's that?
There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on right there, and we have fun with it. But I don't want those ships going out of the bay for the most part because I just don't know. So, Gary, what are your general thoughts on a sea-based campaign?
Yeah, I think Greyhawk has a ready-made campaign, just a whole milieu just set up for itself with the Azure Sea. So, Mike can talk a little bit more about the different nations that comprise those sea powers. But from east to west, you've got a lot of places to visit, a lot of different kind of campaigns you can run, a lot of different kind of places you can visit. And then once you go south, you've got the whole Densac Gulf and the Isle of Dread and other places to go to. So
you're saying that there's a lot of area that, like, I know in the 3rd edition era it got expanded on, but it hasn't really been retouched now, right? In 5th, it really, it's kind of
most of Saltmarsh.
Let's not. All right, let's stop there because I got such a I got a beef and a half now with this book. And I was doing research. And do you want my beef now or do you want it later in the show? Your choice. Later. Okay. Yeah. It's a huge one. Okay.
Cool.
So there's not a single word that's new in that book. except for like the IU's what do you call it, guy in Salt Marsh. That's about it. Not even the rules aren't
the
even.
appendix is the.
No, All right. We're doing it now.
Okay.
All right. Appendix A. All right. Look at this. See this book? This book? What's his title? Of Ships in the Sea, second edition, right?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Appendix A.
So they stole that.
Of Ships in the Sea. It's word for word.
Okay.
I was doing research, so I'm like, this is ridiculous. So they just stole from the second edition book to make this. There, it is.
I think that was the whole idea, was to.
Oh, but they said that we got new naval combat rules. Right? They said, "Oh, this is great." We got it. Oh man. So I'm sorry. All right, my soapbox is done. My soapbox
that
is
was
done.
quick.
That was good.
That
was the end of
but
the episode.
I'm doing the research because I love this book so much. I said, I'll open this up and see what new things they put in the appendix. No, nothing.
Okay.
That's more.
And to me, it's weird to put the essential part of the book in the appendix and not in the book itself.
You're paying for the conversion. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And do not have to go find the different bits.
I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm done with that. I won't say another word tonight. I didn't mean to offend any 5 years, but I can't stand regurgitated content. I want new content.
That book had so many co-authors for so little new content.
Yeah. Yeah. So
you got to be a little bit reasonable, Jay. I mean, if you're a new player who's never been around for the second edition, you're 22 years old or something, you're not going to find that old second edition book. So you're going to get the material in Ghost of Saltmarsh. So for them, it's new, right? That's what they're targeting. They're not targeting you.
No, I understand that. I do, really. I really, really do. I know they're not targeting me. They're not targeting half the audience, but why do you need 20 authors? See, Gary's chuckling because he understands that. I mean, it's just a rehash, but that's all right. We'll move on to the wonderful topics of why we're here and that stuff. I want to learn stuff. I want to learn about great new things that I don't know about. I don't know anything about the 3.0, 3.5 edition. Very, very little about Scuttle Cove. Very, very little about Sassarine. Very little about the Crimson Fleet. I don't know any of it. I want to hear some things about that. I want to hear about Mike's detail on Shieldlands too. Yeah. And so Anna, what are your thoughts on this?
I think first, I'm digging into the geography. I start with that because the Flanaess is exceptionally well suited for naval adventures because you have an enormous long coastline going from the Arctic to the tropics, and along, meaning there's like 10,000 miles of coastline easy to just, if you just take the coastline and around the major islands and stuff. So there you have hundreds, if not even thousands of ports if you invent all the ports that should be there along the coastline. So you have every climate zone, every type of coastline, from Arctic polar ice caps to fjords to long stretch of beaches to tropical reefs and swamplands and all that. And then you have the other thing that we kind of should not forget about this. It has the major lakes. They are large enough in themselves to be inland seas and can be, even near Div is like big enough for seaborne adventures. And
Willip Navy.
Yeah,
yep.
So and the big rivers too. So I think that Flanaess is exceptionally well suited for naval adventures and sea travel and river travel and lake travel. So meaning boat travel. So yeah. That's my first take. Meaning this topic should be kind of first or high on the list on any DMs to do it. I haven't done it, so I really want to do it. So yeah.
Well, you also, river travel is a thing, how do you, Renee, however you pronounce it, is another huge thing, right? Yeah. Barge combat, it's right outside Greyhawk City, and I just think it gets missed by a lot of gamers and DMs too, because once again, it's something that's out of a comfort zone. So, but it's something that really can be looked at.
I'm reading the chat. So about shipping stuff, north-south, I would agree, but like east-west, Ernst to divers, would that be more logical over water or through land as well?
Well, divers to Greyhawks definitely water-based more than land-based, I would say.
Yeah.
It depends on the original geography, then I would say almost land-based, because to get to Greyhawk is kind of difficult. You have to go down. It's okay. It depends on what direction.
Yeah.
If you go from Divers to Greyhawk, I would definitely go that way. But if you go the other way, it will be more difficult, because to go up to Salintan, if it's like a river, then that becomes a little bit more tricky. And it's
So
not that far, and
Hardby's
it's 3
the
times
stopping
the
point.
distance. So yeah.
It also depends on what you're shipping, right?
Yeah.
If your cargo is heavy, you go by boat. If it's
Yeah.
light, like gems and a few little coins and maybe one or two magic items, you go by road. It's safer.
Yeah.
And you can avoid surprises, and you don't need a big cargo ship to carry a bunch of wands.
Yeah.
Here's an off question. Which is it easier to smuggle materials into Greyhawk, via land or via boat, ship, or by road?
I would say ship.
Yeah.
Ships are big. It's easy to have things in them hidden away somewhere.
I would say by teleport spell.
that definitely,
Okay.
but that was one of the options.
Yeah, because through the gates they're searching stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To search a ship is harder. You can, there's various methods that way. So through the port is probably easier than through the gates.
But do you really want to take that 1 in 100 chance, even if it's a well-known location, of teleporting into solid rock?
Hey, 1E, I teleport without error.
Yeah.
That's like 7th, 8th level.
But I mean, to be honest, if you're going to sneak stuff in on a ship and you have access to magic, what you're doing is you don't even put the goods on the ship. As you get close to port, you drop it in the middle of the river, let it sink to the bottom, and then just use water breathing that night to go get it. And you're done.
You know,
seriously, the Rennie must be experts at this. I mean,
Yes.
they probably have the big subcontract in order to get all this stuff in. You just pay a Rennie, and 9 times out of 10 it'll be in there.
So, Rich, do you know who you sound like?
Who's that?
John Hancock. Because when he smuggled French wine in, because you were only allowed to have one type of wine in Massachusetts, they would drop it overboard and then they would pick it up later on as it sunk.
Yeah, it's tried and true, and especially if you have water breathing or even water genasi in your room, you have to go in and get it, right?
Pretty interesting.
Man. Brilliant.
Really a cool idea there, definitely. All right, Mike, you got your pirate hat on.
Yeah.
I want to know how you got enthralled with the Sea Princes.
Well, I mean, who doesn't like pirates? Right? And so, having done pretty much everything else in the world of Greyhawk, that was one of those campaigns that I hadn't really fully explored. And of course, the Sea Princes is the place to be, right? But the Great Wars kind of ruined that, so I had to go back to the beginning and start developing from there. And it's the South Seas is very vast, unexplored, undeveloped place. I think it's great for a campaign. Never mind, like the jungles and all that too.
True.
And then from there, when you just spread out across the Azure Sea and whatnot, it's just so many. All the ports of call, it just kind of snowballs from there.
But you took it to another level.
Yeah, how's that?
Well, if you look at, you developed the entire political structure, the fleet structure. If we go to, I'm going to go right to here, starting here, and we got the grand map that Gary gave me of the entire Flanaess, showing, the water travel.
Yeah, I just blinked that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, but from here you go to your hold of the Sea Princes map here. So.
Okay, yeah, my new map. Okay, so my South Seas map, all that is a Darling map combined with the map from Scarlet Brotherhood and then the Isle of Dread stuff from the Savage Tide campaign. So it's like 3 different sources.
Okay.
Combined into one map.
Well, it's good. It's a good map, but these I pulled right off your site, and these maps are very excellent as far as getting a general idea, of So you could have done more. You could have designed all.
Yeah, I could have designed. Well, Yeah, what I would like to do is have heraldry. I'm not really big on doing heraldry. That would be nice to have, like all the pirate fleets have their own flag. Because in Savage Tide, the Crimson Fleet has a symbol. It's like a black, I can't remember if it's a red or a black skull on a red field or whatever. But
that shouldn't be too hard to do.
yeah, so I think all the fleets need their own symbols.
They can't all fly the Jolly Roger.
Yeah.
Mike, we should discuss that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
And we can do something, because
So-
I would love to have that.
Mike, explain this map to
Yeah.
us.
Okay. Which map?
This is the one with the multicolored locations. Is that
All the-
different counties, or is that
Provinces or
noble
Okay. So in
domains?
the most recent article I was in Orth Journal when I did the Sea Princes, I kind of went into some detail on the nobility of the place. It's in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer that there are 20 to 30 noble domains, and so naturally I'm gonna carve them out, see how it works. There's some we know about. We know about the Grand Duchy of Burgos. We know the Prince of Monmouth. I recall seeing references to Commodores. Then there's Hokar and Westkeep. So, some of that stuff's already filled in for you. I just had to fill in the gaps, right? Maybe
Right.
create a few more ports so it's not so empty. So it's just something that developed over the last few years of gaming.
So you actually have developed this. You developed this over time, and then put the map together. Is what you're saying?
I have, they're around here somewhere. I have full-size maps that I drew out
Okay.
for gameplay, and then I've done various versions of them over the years, and then I finally decided I need one that's like clean and that's easier to share with people, because these other hand-drawn maps are kind of ratty. Yeah. Just like a pirate map, ratty.
So we both have aversions to the Scarlet Brotherhood over here,
Mhm.
just because the Sea Princes are always cool. I mean, I used them back when I was a kid, and in your world, Mike, are the Sea Princes the preeminent naval fleet in all of the Flanaess?
Yes, if they want to be.
Okay.
I have split the Sea Princes into two, maybe 2.5 rival fleets.
And here, that's this
So-
map.
Right, and that's the third map.
Okay.
So there's a lot of infighting. They all have their own agendas and whatnot. But like if Qland attacks the Sea Princes or whatever, then they band together, and you can't
Okay.
stop them.
Why two, not 3, 4?
Why 2?
Yeah, why 2 different factions, not more?
Well, I try to keep it simple. We already know of Prince Gian in Monmurg, and
Okay.
then there's Port Tolly. So I just assume Tolly, Monmurg, those are the two hubs.
Okay.
Pretty easy.
I noticed you have them down on the map, down all the way south, east of Sasserine, the one faction, and that is, I can't read it from here. I'm going to go to another bigger. Here we go, and let's hope this pops up here. And this one here, Port Elizabeth. Okay.
Port Elizabeth.
Okay.
I do not remember where I got that,
Okay.
but I'm fairly certain I did not create that.
Gary, Rich, do you have any Port Elizabeth knowledge?
No.
Okay.
I'll
Hang on
get
a
back to
second,
you
I
on
can
that.
search for that.
And Fort Blackwell also. I know that Fort Blackwell.
Yeah, Blackwell is well known.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That
marked.
was a sergeant thing, I think. But
That's
I'm
marked
not-
as a what do you call it? A Scarlet Brotherhood location on certain maps I've seen too. I believe.
Yeah, the Scarlet Brotherhood eventually comes in and just takes all them little forts over one by
Okay.
one.
Okay. So cool.
I just tried launching the Zavoda bot on the Discord, but it's not up and running at the moment.
It got Gary nixed it tonight so that you wouldn't be bouncing back and forth. These maps are awesome, and they are available on Mike's site, and I was able to pull them right off. So you will be, let me give you that shout out for that location here. Whoops. I see Jay hit the wrong button. My bad. See, I knew I was going to hit the wrong button tonight. I'm flipping between screens. My bad. That was all me.
Are we restarting?
No, we're good. That was me. I'm sorry. There you go. It worked there. So, yeah, I was trying to flip to my shout out screen and I hit the wrong button. So, my apologies. So
here's the.
Good.
I was going to say, I just now linked. Here are the fleets that I'm working with in my campaign. If you want the complete overview. How I've reconciled the Scarlet Brotherhood conundrum is that while they might be trying to infiltrate the various courts in the land, their main contact on the seas is they have their own pirate group, which I've called the Cousins of Tilva. Because as we know, the Scarlet Brotherhood is a three-part government: thieves, assassins, and monks. So it just stands to reason the thieves are pirates.
Okay.
I mean, who are they thieving?
Right.
Not the monks, right?
That's
work out of
yeah.
And so forth.
The monks are just so hard to place. You know what I mean? Besides,
Yeah.
Well, although Gary did put them in all over the place, right? If you read the Gord the Rogue novels, there's a couple of monks in this the castle, right? That they're raiding at the beginning of.
In the Pomarge? In the Pomarge?
Yeah, in the Pomarge.
Oh, Lord.
Castle Stal, whatever that is, Staliver.
Yeah. There's a couple of monks hanging out there. So I think the monks could be on the ships as as a leader or as a advisor or something like this.
I think that's the way they were always intended to be used.
Yes.
As kind of hidden, spies that infiltrated themselves around different courts and would manipulate events through that.
And that's how
position.
They were kind of in Greyhawk Adventures. They were portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could see a monk pretending to be a bosun mate or something on a ship, right? He's not the captain.
Yeah, they're not going around wearing Scarlet.
He lets the captain do his things, and then he'll talk to the captain in his quarters after hours and say, "Look, we need to go there because I need to do a run, and I got to pick something up." In
my campaign, I have a home rule that any priest of Cyril can pretend to be a priest of any other god, and Cyril will back them up.
I like that.
100%.
I love that, Gary. In fact, I got to write that note down for something.
The other thing going for Scarlet Brotherhood monks hiding amongst crews is that down in the South Seas, a lot of your sea princes or Lordship of the Isles or whatnot, you have a lot of Sewell heavy communities, so it'd be easier for them to blend into those crews.
Okay. So, Rich, I know you're not a Sea Princess person, but as far as ship, you do a lot of work with the oceans navigation and everything. What's your mainstay area that you like to use as far as ship-based combat or where adventuring is that you have sea-based?
Yeah, I'm like Mike. I like to play in the Azure Sea down there. So this is an interesting thing. If you've ever played To Walk Beneath the Waves in the dungeon magazines, there's this city on the southern coast of Keelan called Rawnes, or Ron, Rawnes. And it literally says in that module that all along the southern continent, so along the southern portion of Keelan, is a continental shelf. So for like 3-4 miles out from the coast, you have it only about 60 feet deep. And that's it. So along the coast, you can do a lot of underwater stuff, and it doesn't go that deep.
How far out's the shelf again? I'm sorry?
About 3 miles out.
Oh, okay.
Continental shelf, 2 to 3 miles off the coast, which is only 60 to 80 feet deep before it drops off into the ocean.
Which means that
on my map.
You can survive with underwater adventuring with air, with water breathing potions, and you're not going to get crushed.
Exactly, because human beings can go about maybe 300 and something feet underwater before they're the pressure builds up in their lungs and start to get permanent damage.
Right.
So if you're 60, 80 feet, and you also can see, right? I saw you put up that little image I sent you earlier.
Yep.
Well, if you're within 100 meters, you can still see pretty nicely underwater, right? Anything below that, and that's it. Humans can't see. So if you're within, maybe 30, 40, 50 feet,
Here you go.
you can still see a decent distance, right? You can see a good, I'm translating in my head, right? I know all my numbers are meters, so multiply by 3.3. So you can see about, 200 feet in that first little zone near the top part of it. So it's actually quite reasonable to adventure underwater off the continental shelf Keelan.
Yeah. And if you want to be realistic, then ocean water is generally way more clear than lake water. Lake water is usually muddy and you can't see 5 feet in front of you.
Yeah.
As soon as you get close to the bottom, it's just a mud pool and you can't see anything. But ocean water is usually much, and especially when you're either in the tropics or when you come really far north, when it gets really, really cold in the water, those are the two waters that are clear. It's the temperate water that are in between that tends to be full of stuff, so to speak.
Very neat.
Kind of,
So, as far as in the Asia Sea, what governments are using?
So what I did was I had the Scarlet Brotherhood and the Sea Princes trying to choke off the southern portion of Keelan. So Salt Marsh, if you look at it, if you're running a campaign on Salt Marsh, you're running a gauntlet, right? Monmouth is probably blockading that whole area. So if you got a ship in the Salt Marsh, you're running the Sea Princes or Scarlet Brotherhood blockade every time you want to get to the Azure Sea. So what I did is I started off my players there. They got the Sea Ghost. Then they went off in the Azure Sea, and I had to put islands in the sea for them to use as a new base. There's this one neat adventure, I forget what it's called, but there's an island, it's like a mountain on an island, and there's a temple of a god. So I put Procan there, and I said it's a temple to Procan in the middle of the Azure Sea somewhere. And I made them save the priest and his family who was trapped there and conquered by some pirates. And that's their base of operation. So from there, they started going around visiting all the coasts and some uninhabited islands and all that good stuff in the sea.
So you extended greatly, which is what you need to, what you should do, and what you need to do. Your goals of Salt Marsh and really put it beyond that, which was a fantastic thing.
You got to get them out of that neck, right? You got to get the guys in the middle of the sea. Otherwise, you can't do any coastal Nyrond adventures. You can't go visit Primp if you want, right? You got to get out of there. So you got to wait till they get a high enough level. D&D terms would be, I don't know, let's say 5th or 6th level. When they get more powerful enough, you put them on a Sea Ghost and you push them out into the middle of the sea, and then you make them do adventures radiating from there.
That's cool.
Now, I was going to say, one interesting thing that people aren't aware is sound travels like crazy underwater, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an undersea villain, so let's say you have a Kraken or something who's pissed off at your party. If he's underwater and he yells out and says, hey, the Sea Ghost is here, his voice can be heard from one end of the sea all the way to the Solnor Ocean. That's how far he can bellow. So basically, anybody in the sea, right up to the Lord of the Isles, all the way on the other side, Lordship of the Isles, is hearing this guy yelling that, hey, the Sea Ghost is here, come get it. So it gets pretty interesting. They say you can hear a whale's call from like 3,000 miles away.
Wow.
Just to give you an idea.
Some of the things that are never thought about in gaming terms.
Yeah, at least you could until modern ships, but in and noise in the ocean today. But in fantasy world, that you can use that for a lot of cool effects, so to speak.
Well, another thing in this fantasy campaign, there's so many underwater cultures, right? You got Tritons, you got Sahagwin, you have Malenti, Sea Elves, Coalinths, Scrags, goes on, that don't exist in the real world too, that are going to be hearing things. So Alma puts Aquaman. A Len reference tonight. Very, very nicely done.
Yep.
Very, very nicely done. That was awesome. So Gary, what is your what was your go-to if there ever was one for sea-based?
You know, I always liked the Isle of Dread, and
Yes.
so whether that was originally in the known world or later in Greyhawk, I would customize it and play with it and situate it such that I would always bring, you know, new parties of adventurers there and kind of refresh it depending on the rules system of the time. And so when Eric gave me a chance to bring it into Greyhawk officially, of course I jumped at it, and we did that in Dungeon Magazine.
I can only imagine what that conversation was like.
That one was over, and we had this discussion about how many things happen in the campaign over alcohol. Was that another?
This was not one of those.
Okay.
But let's see. When you think of this region, you're essentially dealing with the legacy of two events: the fall of the Ulman Empire, which seems to have occurred in stages, beginning well before the cataclysms and ending maybe well after. So maybe the city-states that were in the Hetmonaland fell first, and then they sort of started to collapse back to the Amidio, and the Amidio was sort of their last stand. But what I did was I suggested that the Isle of Dread held on a few centuries more because they were just so isolated. But the Ulman were never, while they were a sea-going people, they were never a sea power in that sense. So they were not able to resist what was the second major factor of this region, which was the Sul diaspora. So the Sul is the second major culture that invaded this region, and they started even before the twin cataclysms. You have something called First Comers Sul, which were people that were either exiled or decided to leave the wars and move over the mountains and found trading ports and that sort of thing. So there's where you get your Toli. So Toli are, you know, the worst of the Sul. They're almost as bad as the Scarlet Brotherhood.
Pirates?
They love piracy. So there's the start of the legacy of piracy in this entire region. The Ulman weren't pirates. It's the Sul that brought them. And once the reign of Carlos Fire hit, then you got a massive wave of Sul migrating out. And they went to Keoland, they went to the area we call the Sea Princes now, they went to the Pomage, they went to ID, they went to the Scarlet Brotherhood area, they even went to the Lordship Isles. So depending how you pronounce the word, Duxcan.
I would say Duxcan.
Yeah, I always use
Nothing
the hard.
fancy.
I use the hard K for Sul CHs, but
Yeah,
Duxcan.
Duxcan. Yeah, I think it's...
all these subgroups of Sul became, to one extent or another, piratical in their nature, because they probably had land that wasn't very good for farming, some natural resources, but not a lot of people to trade with, and piracy was such a natural thing for them to take up, I think. But of all these powers, the Kiowish were the sort of the upright, the upstanding group that probably produced the first, maps of this region for the rest of the Flanaess. So the Kiowish are kind of like, if you want to compare them to your European explorers, they're like the first European explorers to go out into this region and make maps.
I did not know that.
Found some towns, and that includes Sasserine.
So founded or found?
Both in some cases, right?
Right.
So in some cases, they're encountering their own Sul brothers who had founded new realms in the Azure Sea, but in the other cases, they may have encountered the Ulman and begun trading with them.
Okay.
So I think when you go back to Mike's breakdown of the Sea Princes, what you have there is kind of a tension between these old Sul who really want their slavery, their piracy unfettered, and sort of the
Unfettered.
the newer Sul who are a little more noble in their outtake, but didn't want to be ruled by Keoland, and probably aren't so pro-slavery, but tolerate it. And that's where you get these various fleets. So yeah, if they come together, they're the most powerful naval force in the region. But if they don't, they can be picked off, which the Kiowish have done many times in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Gary, this is a tough question. What date is Sasserine founded in the calendar? Roughly, do you have any idea? I know James Jacobs is basically the creator of it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
When do you think it was actually founded? Because it wasn't on the original map. You know, because it's too far south. But
Mike has it as minus 124.
Really?
So that's almost 700 years old, right? So
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's actually in the Savage Tide.
It is in the
I
Savage.
would've
Okay.
just pulled that out of nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's in the I got it right here. So so we got Savage Tide. All right. I see.
reasonable
Further
because-
details are provided in Dungeon 139. All right. So, wow. Okay. I did not know that. So it predates the Invoked Devastation, or one, right?
no,
No, it doesn't.
No.
Okay.
No, no,
Oh,
no.
that's the founding of the Great Kingdom. Officially, is one.
that's around that time.
Ouija's,
Right. Okay.
First spur of Ouija's.
Yeah,
lit some
roughly,
people
yeah,
up.
The Kingdom of Aerde is founded minus 116. See,
Yeah, that's another of those conundrums. The Great Kingdom was founded before the Overking was crowned Overking
oh yeah,
by about 110 years. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
whenever you talk about the reign of the Overkings, that's one common year forward.
Yeah,
Subtract
Okay.
another 110.
it's 116 years,
Yeah.
115 years. I have the calendar here. Yeah. Mhm.
All right.
So these are really old places.
Yeah. It's surprising. I'm surprised, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
it's
but
good.
a lot of people came from the west, so I'm not surprised that a lot of places in the west are older than the Great Kingdom and stuff like that, because they actually migrated east. And then you have some old Flan and stuff that are older than that. But I'm not surprised that all that things in the west are older in some ways than in the east.
So, Fritz,
Yeah.
I know you're huge on the Sul. As far as so, do you think the Sul are the premier sailors?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you look at all the
I would agree with him on that
if
too.
you look at all the countries that are on the sea, they're mostly all Sul, right?
Right.
I mean, apart from Primp and you got a little bit of Lissa, but they're so insignificant on the inner sea that really kind of ignored them.
Even with Keoland, it's the Sul Kiowish, not the Iridian Kiowish, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
And you look at, even if you look at the gods, right? I mean, I think there's 3 Sul gods dedicated to water,
Serbo, Procan,
and Osprey.
Norobo.
Osprey.
Oh,
No,
Osprey.
Noribo-
Osprey. That's it. Osprey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Noribo's luck.
Yep.
I mean,
And
it
Iridian,
seems intentional. I think Gygax and Lakofka both wanted the Sul to be the seafaring.
Okay.
I try to avoid saying the race, but the seafaring culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's interesting. Then where do they come from? Meaning, do they have that in their blood
that's where
from
I'm trying
history?
to
It
figure
seemed
out,
to be
yeah.
inlanders when it comes where they migrated from.
so we had a big chat on this, and Gary and I discussed this quite often, and as other
Okay.
people. So
Yeah.
on Campfire, we always have those late night,
just wanna-
Friday night chats out of the blue, and we're convinced that. So if you look at the Sea of Dust in the Dragon the Dragon Annual, you see there's a little strip of land just below it along the coast, right? I think it's such an S, I forget what it's called, and we're convinced that that's like a protectorate of the Swell Empire. And they had ports running up and down that land that were part of the Swell Empire. And they just
They
had
were
explorers.
tropical.
Oh, yeah, they just were
originally?
explorers and they were going out there. And there's probably lost civilizations. You could have like an Atlantis type island somewhere in the Pearl Sea that have the ancient Sewell before the fall of the empire. So they have all that old technology. So you could put like an Atlantis down there without breaking any lore, because it would make sense. I mean, the Sewell for sure were seafaring races at the height of their empire. There's no reason for them not to have explored Monoland and the Ulman Islands and all this. And that's why you have residual Sewell aboriginals in all those areas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and they might have had the most advanced science at the time for seafaring technology. They also, just let's face it, they got the southern end of the map, which was full of seas. So
Yeah.
they basically had to develop that technology in order to cross.
Yeah, and culturally, it doesn't need to take that long, more than a few generations, and you can actually learn. You don't. It doesn't need to take thousands of years. It can go in 100, 200 years. You can learn.
Amy Crittenden just said there were 2 Sewell houses that left that Imperium through that route, mentioned in Len's Earth Journal timeline. Well, that's good. I did not know that.
The Lerrara and what was it more?
Left through. Okay.
Yeah,
That's good to know. I mean, it seems like the Sewell, you know, I guess Sea Barons are Sewell too?
No.
They're not. Okay.
No.
But they may, you know, they're a very significant naval power. I would say there's probably only 4 tier 1 powers in the entire Flanaess, and that's the Sea Princes, Kiowish, Lordship Isles, and Sea Barons. I don't count the Scarlet Brotherhood because they're basically using other people's ships. They may have had some ships, but they're not a sea power by themselves.
Okay. You say, what about the Barbarians as a whole? They're a pretty good sea power as well, right?
Yeah, but they can't. They don't project their power beyond the Aerty coast.
Yeah.
You know, they raid. Drakars are not.
But I mean,
they could if they wanted.
They probably could if they wanted.
The Sea Barons just probably stick around in their corner also, right? The Sea Barons are not coming to the Azure Sea.
They are not coming to the Azure Sea anymore because they're not allowed to.
Oh, I don't think the Lordships would have let them through, right? The Lordships.
No. Those have been rivals for 500 years.
Right. So the Sea Barons are pretty much stuck between the Lordship of the Isles and the Barbarians.
Which is interesting because I think it's one of the few Gygax references post-publication of the 83 guide where he mentions a battle between the two of them and mentions, I think, that the Sea Barons win.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's the Battle of Medesia or Aerty or something like that.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah. And interestingly, the Battle of Jetsam Isle, the Sea Princes lose to Keeland.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, 2 big powers that we brag about have both canon reference losses.
So
probably more professional navies too.
I'm going to ask a bizarre question. The Great Kingdom never became great sea-based at all, correct?
Not really.
They have ports, right? Do they have port? The Great
Relastra
had no interest. Had no interest whatsoever.
I don't know. It's something they seem to have forgotten in writing.
That's what I'm at. Yeah, exactly. I wonder if I sure would know.
You got to ask yourself, why would you become a sea power, right? The only reason you have any is for trade. If you have nobody to trade with, why would you become a sea power?
Yeah.
So if you look at the location of the Great Kingdom as a whole at its height, you need to be able to go from Prim to Nyrond. Let's say that Nyrond was part of the Great Kingdom, right? So you have a little bit of trade that way. You're not going east because there's nothing east to trade with. So why do you need to be a strong sea power? Where are you going? You're not leaving your coast.
Hipmonaland. Yeah.
But they didn't care about Hipmonaland, right?
Yeah,
they basically defeated the Sewell of the Lordship Isles to take that over as a colony. So they didn't really. I mean, that colony was supplying everything they needed and raiding Hipmonaland for them. So there's nowhere to go east. You know.
It's south is the only.
So there's no reason for them to build a big fleet. They built the Sea Barons were basically there to.
That's what they're for.
Barbarians. The Sea Barons are there for the fight off the Barbarians, and that's it.
And the Soul Pirates, yeah.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is, I always pictured the Iridians sea battles are very much like the Romans. So when the Romans went to sea, they were not a seafaring race. So what they would do is they tried to reproduce their infantry battles on sea. So they would actually pull up next to the ships, a huge drawbridge, they'd slam it onto the other ship, and then they would fight in formation, as if they were fighting on the plains of out there. And they would just march across in their military turtle type formation, and they'd fight as if they were fighting on land.
For the longest time, for the longest time, the Carthaginians beat them at sea all the time.
Yeah, but if they could get close, the Romans would kick the hell out of their Carthaginians. If they could get close to their ships, and that's why I figure the sea barons, right, would fight against the lordship and the sea barbarians. They'd show up, and then they'd turn into a land battle on water, and then they'd win.
Okay.
I'm fiddling around with dice here. I have to give Carlos a
yes, you need percentile dice for his fundraiser.
Yeah.
I did mine right before I came on. So
So in my campaign, I developed, out of a need for another villain, I developed a South Provincial Navy.
Okay.
I reasoned that with the Palmer's Pirates and the Scarlet Brotherhood Pirates, and then of course the Iron League is supposed to be your main enemy, and they're all naval kind of trade people, that South Province needed to project a little force. So I had South Province, who is, if you factor in like the religion of Zilchus and all that, they put a lot of money into building a navy just to flex a muscle, but they are still outclassed in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of tier 2 navies. Even Nyrond has to have some kind of navy. The South Province, Iron Gate, ID, the Pomarge has pirates in blue, right? So, probably all sorts of ships coming out of High Port.
Elrid, and
but none of these navies would be big enough to take on one of the top tier guys without allies.
I always see, and tell me where they fall in ranking or whatever, I always see this notation about Keoland was aided by a fleet of Ulic warships. I see that all the time in mentions.
I do that a lot.
Okay. So, and I'm assuming it's mostly human?
Gryrax.
So one thing people tend to forget, I think, is that right across the Sheldamar River, those are the same Rola Sul that are in Keoland. They're the exact same people.
They're just in a principality.
They're just swearing allegiance to the prince, who was once a, fief within a fief of the kingdom of Keoland. So, it's not unnatural for them to have an alliance. And most of the people running, the naval power out of Gryrax are the humans.
Okay.
And so it's just a natural alliance, I think.
Please, everyone, answer this question for me, because I have it a little different, and I don't know if I'm way off. Is it way out of the norm realm to say that some doors would take acuity to the sea at all? I see that as a possibility. Am I way off?
Well, dwarves are traders, right? They like to. So maybe the traders would be interested because they see good potential. They'd also have to, if they wanted to trade their heavy, like if they're dealing with ore, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way you're moving ore around is by water. And you're not carting that on your back or on a mule. So they would need to have some sort of system to move it around. So barges, at least, up and down the rivers. And, it's a small step to go from barges to cogs, et cetera, et cetera. So I could see how the Principality of Ulic, the prince, would take advantage of the human technology to build cogs and whatnot, couple that with the dwarves, and you'd have a couple of dwarves who would be interested. Now, it's not going to be the majority of them, but you'd have a few who would say, you know what, I'm a merchant, and I don't trust anybody else to deal with my ore.
Right.
I'm going to run that ship, right?
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't completely off base there. Thank you, Rich.
They'd make some cool Marines.
Yeah, I think so. I that's exactly where.
Dwarves would be horrible Marines. They can't swim.
Most Marines don't have to.
What I'm saying is dwarves will literally sink.
That's funny.
Because of their density, they don't float.
That's
Humans
funny.
float.
Yeah, but
But
most
the water-
Marines are just passengers until the muscle is.
Right. But all I'm saying is that a dwarf would be kind of scared that, like he.
So
So
dwarf.
as an adventurer, you're not going to play a dwarf the same way you play a human, because if you're playing a dwarven adventure, if you really want to play realistically, you cannot swim. So you cannot dive and go down to like an underground or underwater fortress and then swim back up to your ship. You cannot swim back up.
So is
You
that
don't float.
a truism based on their bone
Well, just
structure?
their
They
map.
cannot swim.
Well, no, I didn't say that. I said they can't float.
Floats. Okay. Okay.
So
Floats.
if you can't float, you can't swim.
Fat
Right?
floats.
Okay.
Fat floats.
No, but dwarves can't, because if you look at the D&D rules, right, based on their height and the weight that they give, they can't float. They're heavier than water.
Okay.
Physics.
It's physics, right? If you're heavier than water, you can't swim.
Well, it's D&D physics, so dragons can fly.
It's an area of
Kind of, yeah.
conjecture.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think
But
Rich has got good points.
It's an interesting take.
Yeah, because it just came to
Well,
me. Like,
Rich
Well-
Rich has written a lot about this, but I think we underestimate how much more dangerous sailing is in a fantasy world. But at the
Yeah.
same time, how many more solutions are offered because you're in a fantasy world?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have somewhere there's a balance.
Tim puts a good point: is no one floats in armor.
Yeah.
Unless it's floating armor, which is a magical item in D&D and a lot of, so.
Well, I mean, if I'm a dwarf, the first thing I'm getting is someone to help me float, right? Or a ring of swimming or something like this.
Okay. Potion of water breathing, just to play it safe. But I guess
Water breathing doesn't help you, right? It eventually runs out. If you're sitting at the bottom of the water and you can't get out. Let's look like Highlander and you're going to walk the shore.
Oh gosh, yeah, I remember that. Or that really bad. You remember the robot episode of Gilligan's Island, where it walked to the Hawaii or whatever. Yeah, I guess that's not happening in reality. Ring of Free Action. Yeah, there's a lot of outs there. I was curious. Because I have a few sea-based, like I have an NPC. He's a dwarf fighter out of Hardby, and he's been a seafarer his whole life. So, but it's just one. So, but I use Prince Palaeolus a lot, and I just wanted to see what the thought was on that. So, is there Navy in the top 10? Prince Palaeolus.
Oh,
Gary?
maybe 10. Yeah,
10.
maybe 10.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're giving me a lot of slack there.
There's not many more than 10 countries on the team.
Exactly.
I don't
Someone.
know if I ever
But
tried
interestingly
ranking.
enough, I would say the navy of Principality Ulick is probably smaller than the one of Furiandi, because Willip is a much bigger construction site than Gryrax is. And if you look at the near div, so going back to what Anna was saying before, so the Caspian Sea is about 370,000 square kilometers, and the near div is about half of that. So the near div is half the size of the Caspian Sea. I mean, that's a fairly big lake.
Yeah.
So, I could see Willip having a really fairly big navy there. Not to mention the Furiandi has to have a navy on the White Still, which is about the size of the Superior. You add the two together.
Who are they projecting power against?
Well, one is Ayus, and the other side is going to be...
Ayus doesn't have any ships. He doesn't have any ports.
No, but you're still projecting power against him. Remember that. Okay, so as a naval power... So as a naval power, you want to have trade, right? So on the near div, it's all about trade. So Furiandi would have a very strong trading fleet there, and you need a certain amount of military ships to protect your trade routes. So Furiandi would have trade routes to protect against pirates on the near div. On the White Still, you would want to project power. So when you project power, is you want to be able to scare the coastal villages. So you need ships to carry your troops. So Furiandi would have some mobile ships up on the White Still just to raid and punish Ayusian fortresses, just to teach them a lesson. So that's all they do. These would be troop transports.
Amy brings up a great point. The Rennie trade with Ayus.
Yeah.
Good point. So that the Furiandians would love to break that up whenever they could. Yeah.
And there's a lot more money
Thank
to
you.
be made on the near div than there is on the Azure Sea.
Yeah.
Just because all the places you could trade.
They're probably more comparable to a police force than they are to an army.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one thing. Like if you look at fantasy, because of the sea monsters and because of the underwater races and all, most trading vessels would be smaller than on Earth. They want to be fast.
Yeah.
They want to have it small and fast. And if you could be hidden in a way that you're not noticed, even better. So that would be one of the bigger advantages than size to carry large transport.
Cool. I didn't even think about the Furendi Navy and that it's split in half.
It's written
split.
about
Yeah.
many. Yeah, Carl Sargent was really elaborate when he talked about the Furundian strength, naval strength.
But
yeah.
isn't the old capital of Shieldlands on an island? So don't they have a navy? They had a navy of some sort.
Sure. Yeah.
They had to have. That's not.
But their population is so much smaller than Furundi is, and they probably had to put a lot more effort and government money into protecting the north, right? Castles and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So they probably put a lot more effort in these castles to the north, and they couldn't put as much money to building a fleet. Right? It's a financial thing.
Okay.
Yeah, fleets are expensive.
Yeah.
I guess in a fantasy world, just like in the real world, the most expensive type of arms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, speaking of that, I get this all the time with my players. So a couple of ventures, I did crossbows and crossbones, Sean Reynolds, a few weeks ago. And it was a one-shotter, but they captured the ship. And they have that group has a letter of marque from Hardby. Nice. Okay. But I compensated them. They say what was a paltry amount of coinage. Like I gave them 6,000 gold for it because they're all right. That's not enough. So how do you determine value? Is it based on what your own economy is, Rich, and Gary and Anna and Mike? Is and then you go from there, work up, or do you?
It just depends on what edition I'm using.
Okay.
I usually go by the book price.
So okay. I actually went a little bit crazy. So I don't.
Okay.
So I'm walking you through this. So I don't use D&D. So I use this stuff. So what I did is I literally looked at a lumberjack. I said, how much time does it take a lumberjack to cut down a tree and turn into lumber, and I calculate how much time it would take him. So, like a lumberjack typically would cut down about 4,000 kilos, so maybe 10,000 pounds of tree in a day, and then it would take another day to turn into lumber. I said, okay, so how much would he make in that amount of time?
Wow. And
then I doubled that, and I said that's what a merchant would sell the stuff for. And then I took a shipwright, I said how long it would take them to build the ship based on technology and the weight, the amount of wood and other material. And I made a complete Excel sheet that I actually put up on Cannon Fire. And it works it all out from beginning to end. So based on the size of the ship and the weight of the ship, and the amount of wood in it, and the amount of other stuff and the technology level of the ship, it gave me a value in gold pieces for what this thing would cost to build. And then obviously a merchant would sell it for double that because he wants to make a nasty profit on it. So yeah, so I built it from the lumberjack right up through all the way to the finishing at the end.
All right. So
I also, sorry.
Oh, well. My follow-up, and I'm sorry, is what would in your game a one-masted trading sloop cost in gold pieces?
All right, let me pull that up one second. I'll let you guys. It's actually all in Cannon Fire. I wrote an article.
Well, you can link it, please, if you please link
about
it.
A cog.
A cog, yeah.
Okay, my most recent Sea Princes book, I have it at 6,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's when you take prices,
let me see what Rich comes up
vary a lot according to the estimate profit that it can bring. So the cost of building a ship is just the base.
You're right.
If sell it can make a lot of money on owning it, he will sell it dearly. But if there is not that much goods to be shipped at a profit, he will sell it cheap, so to speak.
Yeah,
so,
I meant a cog. I meant a one-masted cog because that's
So I will attempt to link it. I don't know how I'm going to do this, so give me a sec because I'm on tablet and I'm on.
No problem. I mean,
give us a minute to think about how to steal Mike's book.
this junky thing.
Come on, man. There's no. Come on, you got to have that information. I mean, like that. It's one of those color codes.
The most valuable thing in here is my encounter charts.
Yep.
Handmade encounter sea counter charts.
Oh,
coastal,
wow.
at sea.
Wow.
So forth.
Do you have a unique one for Chiclia Bay?
No, not unique for location, just for in general coastal.
Okay.
To see.
So, all right. So you got 6,000.
I got it for about 3,000 gold pieces for a small cog.
Okay.
There you go.
Small cog. All right.
That's like a 23-ton ship.
Okay.
And is that to build your own?
No, that's basically the price. So basically building it with half of that.
All right. Right out of the ballpark then.
Yeah, to give you an idea, like a simple dinghy is about 100 GP.
All right.
So selling price.
How about a rowboat? 10?
Rowboat, a 3-man rowboat.
Just
about
curious.
the same as the dinghy. It's a little bit.
100, really? Wow.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It should be way more expensive than a bow is or a sword.
It's about 150 kilos, right? This thing. It's a heavy thing. 150 kilos is a rowboat.
Casey, how much is a raft of a bunch of doors lashed together?
Stolen from the adventure.
Free?
That's a Bandit Kingdom ship in the Living Greyhawk campaign.
The cost of a rope?
That took some building material and tied it together and
Cheap.
used it. Yeah.
That's really
So Jim, and here's where I'm evolving this into. All right, and here's my master plan idea. So if you don't think I'm completely crazy, if you've seen my encounters, I should have gotten them. I have those 2 resin ships. I have one that has an upper deck and one that is basically 2 lower decks. One's a cog, one's like a little bit of a larger cog, but they're both one-masted. So I'm right in the ballpark for between that 3,000 and 6,000 gold piece range. And Jim Segia brings up a point here. Ships of the line, which I'm assuming exist in Greyhawk, the equivalent, or no. Or they do not.
Ships of the line are only needed for cannons. If you don't have cannons, you don't need ships of the line.
Okay, so how about a galley?
Galleys for sure.
Okay, how about what would be the largest naval ship that a fleet would have, like the sequence? What's that?
So I thought about this quite a bit. So
okay,
what you need to understand is the development of ships will be different on Earth than they are in our real world.
Okay.
So the size of your ship is only needed to carry. So there's 2 reasons to have a bigger ship. One is if it's an artillery ship, so you got cannons. One of the cannons go up and blast the hell out of a fortification on the shore. We don't have cannons, so you're carrying ballistas and catapults. But really, you don't need that. You got a mage. A mage can do more damage than a catapult anyway. So what's the point of having a big ship with a bunch of catapults on it? And it's very expensive to build a big ship. So bigger chance of if it sinks, you've lost a lot more money. So a guy who's got an ability to sink your ship. So big navies won't have, they might have a few flagships, but not a lot of big ships. They'll probably have a lot more little ships. The other reason you want a big ship is to carry more troops. So you want to get troops from point A to point B. So, but how often are countries going to invade other countries by ship? If you look at the map of Earth, most of the armies are attacking overland. I mean, you're not going to have Firiandi attacking Ayus by ship. You're not going to have the Great Kingdom invading Nyrone by ship. They're going to send their troops right up the middle. So,
yeah, although we have a counterexample now of the Scarlet Brotherhood projecting their power.
They're the only ones. But do they have enough troops to fill in these big galleons to attack? And right?
I don't know. I mean, humanoids,
that's about it, right? So all I'm saying is that's the only reason you have a big ship. And the bigger ships are much more expensive than a smaller ship. So why would you build one big ship when you can build 3 small ones and carry the same amount of troops?
Does Greyhawk have whaling?
Ooh.
Well, yes. Yeah, there's a count of whaling up in the northern Solnor, particular.
Maybe out of Radek?
Yeah. But whaling can be done in fairly small ship. The Eskimos and the Inuits, they did whaling from canoes basically, or some very small ones.
And Rich, how would I bring home my Kraken carcass when I want to prove
Yeah, that requires big ships. So yeah, big monsters requires big ships.
Well, Rich,
yeah.
I may use black powder weapons in my campaign.
Then you need a bigger ship because you gotta offset the
heresy.
You gotta offset the power, right? The cannon, it'll be the pushback. Right?
And that kind of ties back into dwarves.
Yeah.
I
put the link, by the way, to my article. I'm not sure if it's way up in the chat. So
awesome.
People want to find it, put it there.
You put it into chat,
Merland.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna I got it. I'm gonna relink it multiple times.
And I also have an Excel sheet that has all this in it. So if you want to calculate how much it costs and how long it takes to build a ship, it's in the download section of the Cannon Fire as well.
It's important because it's a great. You did the starting point work for everyone, which is good. Seriously. I mean, because if you're getting into this from scratch and you have no idea,
if anybody wants a better version of it, I have it on Word. So you just send me some in Discord. I'll give it to you. Because Cannon Fire does not exactly have the best formatting on the forums.
So I was watching a show the other night, and they said in our world there are 1 million shipwrecks, roughly, and
not per year.
No,
in history.
No,
yeah,
in
history,
I guess.
And that only 1% of them have ever been found.
Yeah.
So
deep and big, and
it just to put that in perspective in a real world setting, and then put that in perspective into a fantasy setting when there's all sorts of other nasties in the ocean.
You don't need a Bermuda Triangle in the Azure Sea. The entire sea,
right?
Is a Bermuda Triangle.
So
Cold Penguin just posted something that just reminded me that another thing in a fantasy setting that would be kind of cool is a literally floating, moving island.
Yeah, just like they have cloud cities, you could have
we technically have one called the Sinking Isle.
Yeah,
that appeared in the Greyhawk Adventures hardcover, which apparently descends to the bottom of the ocean and then reascends every, I don't know what the period is on it, but every few years.
20, I think.
And it has like creepy temples on it. It's very Lovecraftian.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because way earlier in the Goya Joe asked if there was any other ventures set at sea. And I think they're real, like, besides slavers, which Jay mentioned, you got to really go hunting. Like the Sinking Isle you mentioned, Gary. Then there's like the Jungle of Lost Ships, which is a...
you get stuck there, you're there forever. Yeah.
Which is interesting because that's on the opposite side of the Azure Sea and the Old Jet Sea. So it's, to get there, you have to... sail quite a gauntlet if you're coming from the other side of the map.
And I've used that.
Gasso in the Savage Tides.
Oh, there's one there too? A separate one? Oh.
In the Densec Gulf, yeah.
Explain what that is to the layman out there. What, like, it becomes basically at some point the land rises around and there's just these big almost oxbows kind of, and the ship's stuck, right? Yeah. It's kind of a neat thing. And then you never leave it.
Yeah, that Jungle of Lost Ships could become an adventuring campaign setting because it's huge, apparently.
Yeah.
So many ships tangled together, and there's races of men and humanoids and demi-humans.
That's where the Lost Sea Prince's treasure fleet's at.
So, Amy, you're a fan of Dungeon Meister in DeviantArt, and they just about a year ago they did adventuring in that location. So you want to check out some of those pics; they're really cool. Getting stuck there, how they got out. So that's another. I know someone who utilized that just recently. Very cool.
The Jungle Lost Ships is in the Old Jet Sea, but its exact location I think is really up to
because it can move. It's supposedly an ancient magical effect, correct?
You can't really spot it on a map because then you could avoid it.
Right.
Yeah, you get trapped.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love that. I love that for a hook. You could actually run almost a little mini campaign there trying to get out.
For that to be a shipping lane, you pretty much are going to Hetmanaland, to and from.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are some towns on Hetmanaland. Anna, I don't know if you got those from Scarlet Brotherhood or
Had to be.
from Scarlet
Probably.
Brotherhood.
It's Scarlet
and-
Brotherhood,
and
yeah.
then there's a few mentioned in earlier sources too, but very few.
Yeah.
And compared per square mile, it's not developed at all. Meaning there's like 10 settlements in an area that is the size of the central parts of Great Kingdom, or Nyrund and Forjundi together, and only like 10 places.
We don't talk very much about it, but you have to imagine that a lot of these powers have colonies.
Yeah, but there's also
At the very least to exploit the natural resources that they don't have access to in the Flanaess. So maybe Rail Astra, a tier, you know, the other coastal cities have their colonies down south.
Yeah, kind of like
or they trade directly, because Sharba and Sharbakal are big cities and apparently been there for a long time. So, and they're not colonies; they are like trading posts. So, and go back 500-600 years in the real world, Europe and
All throughout Africa.
West didn't have colonies. It was the other way around. The powerful trading partners were in the south, and they just traded gently with us barbarians up north.
So here's kind of a pet peeve.
Yeah.
How did the Lendor Isles get screwed up?
Yeah.
So Lendor Isle is a single isle among the many Spindrift Isles.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow the entire chain got called the Lendor Isles, and there's not much explanation for that. And then lots of people are unhappy with what Sargent did during the Greyhawk Wars with kicking the humans out of the Lendor.
Yeah, I tried to
Isles.
ask Len about that, and
the elves wouldn't call it Lendor Isles.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that was a really bitter subject for Len.
because the Spindrifts and the Lendors are kind of interchangeable. No one.
So
knows
if
really
there's enterprising fans out there that want to publish something in the Orth Journal or on a website and rehabilitate this entire thing, I think a lot of Len fans would be really happy to see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good idea.
I want to move them a little bit further apart. That way they don't interact with each other too much, and they can be two entities, and we can have an Elven Spindrift, and we can have Lendor Isle and problem solved.
Because he had the elves there originally, right? That wasn't.
Yeah, but it was more like a mini setting. I got the sense that it was like a mini setting. It had everything: dwarfs, elves, humanoids, you name it. It had basically everything.
It felt like what is that isle chain off? I hate to bring up the Forgotten Realms, but off the coast of Farron.
The Moonsheets. Moonsheets.
It felt like they were trying to ape that really closely in our setting, which was unfortunate. And it also was very Tolkien-esque. So
I thought Tolkien,
I bring humans back to Lendor Isle.
So that's Eric Menge's baby, the Moonshays, right? He's done a lot of work there.
It was one of the first books I read, actually, in the Forgotten.
Was it
Darkwater on Moonshee, or
Doug Niles? No.
I think.
Eric's doing a lot of work in there now.
I'm going to read it, but the history of Lendor Isle is
For Adventures League, Casey
but
says.
it's we have Lens, but the Elven realm that's talked about in the Spindrift and stuff is not Lens material. I haven't seen any of that.
No, definitely.
They're separate. So in my campaign, I'm thinking about removing them like 100 miles separated more than they are. So then I can have a Spindrift realm that is Elven, and I can have Lendor Isle.
You know, I don't even know if that's necessary so much, because I don't think the elves have a navy. You know,
that's what they do.
Supposedly the Elven Navy is what keeps the other ships away.
Okay, someone is telling me that the Forgotten Realms place is called Evermeet.
Oh,
Evermeet, yeah. Okay, it's different,
right.
And so that this is like an idea to put an Evermeet in Greyhawk.
Yeah, but Evermeet is like way far away from the Sword Coast, whereas this is not.
Yeah, this is more like the Moonshees. It's just off the coast, right?
No, but the idea is the same in that it is an elven retreat. You know, place where people of the testing go.
That's
that's more like Evermeet.
That's what the Spindrift description fits.
If the elves are gonna hightail it, that's where the direction they go. They can't go west.
But the thing is that the Evermeet has no dwarves and gnomes like the Lendor Isles have, right? Or the Spindrifts.
Yeah.
No, the elves can't pout. They have Sunday right there, a huge kingdom all to themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So Puppet is concerned that I'm going to go full Lord Brezen on the chat
Uh-oh.
and channel my swell nature. So I'm being nice. I'm holding back my comments about the unpaid volunteers that we tend to grab wherever we go.
Rich has not mentioned anything about superiority among any cultures. I vouch for him.
Yeah.
Until
You
now.
don't mention it. It's natural. It's a natural occurring event.
So we actually haven't
Press
talked
games.
much about the Scarlet Brotherhood land.
You mean Tilbanot and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was always kind of a mystery. Gygax left it there, in some ways uncertain whether the Scarlet Brotherhood was even a secret in its own land. You know,
Oh.
was their secret city on the plateau a secret from the rest of the peninsula? It's not really clear what he intended. But I kind of like to play it that way. I mean, I really want the Scarlet Brotherhood to be a secret society. I don't want them to be, you know,
So
out in the open.
You actually separate the secret Scarlet Brotherhood from the Office of Purity and all that. Like the Office of Purity is a government office. The Office of Breeding and Thraldom, those are known government organizations. You're saying the Scarlet Brotherhood is even behind that, like hidden behind that? You'd have
whatever we call the temporal power, I would put them as the power behind the throne, and that these cousins and brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff is kind of like the code for all these relationships that are maintained behind the scenes.
Well, here's where I agree with Gary. On the original Darlene map, there is no marked capital for the Scarlet Brotherhood.
Correct.
It's just in big letters. Scarlet Brotherhood covers the entire plateau.
Yep.
It's only later do we actually have a spot for the capital. But I kind of liked the idea that it's hidden.
Now, it's interesting that they also mentioned that Crow Turlep was a closed city, which is actually a term from real history. There was a concept of the closed city. It was practiced a lot in Asia, for instance. They'd keep their cities closed to foreigners, and you would have some kind of place where you could exchange, but you weren't allowed into the city because your barbarian ways may infect us. So I kind of like the concept that Crow Turlep was this presence on the Azure Sea, but ships would go there and they would trade, but they were like, you know, trading at the end of the dock practically because they weren't allowed into the city.
Was it Crow Turlep or Heshuel Ishar who was the closed city? I think it was Heshuel Ishar.
No. It says Crow Turlep. Heshuel Ishar is an invention of Fatavistus. It is not even mentioned in the original 1983 guide.
So I like the idea that they have a hidden capital on top of the plateau up there.
So Rich, Moose 2271 just said the city you live in was once a closed city.
It still is. We're slowly trying to prevent anybody who's not pure breed swell to come. But this COVID is helping us keep everybody out. But
they had to keep the secret of poutine away from foreigners. But so it seems like the forests and jungles that surround the plateau have always kind of been home to a lot of Ulman and other kind of Sul that weren't, you know, marching in lockstep with the Scarlet Brotherhood, except maybe until 582, when they revealed themselves in some way.
Yeah, it's hard to conquer without, then you kind of automatically become known, so to speak. If you start conquering, then it's hard to do that long-term and hidden.
Well, because everybody you're conquering is interested, right? They send spies back, right? They want to find out who's attacking them.
Yeah, also, but if you rule someone, it becomes kind of apparent for the ruled that they are being ruled by something or someone. So
and I think that's one of the reasons Mike and I hate that the Scarlet Brotherhood over in the Sea Princes, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Just
But here would be a nice alternate outcome for the Scarlet Brotherhood outing themselves and I kind of twiddled with this in my campaign, is have the Scarlet Brotherhood, incognito if you want or otherwise, ally with the Iron League. You know, like desperate times, you know, band together, fight Airdy, because the Scarlet Brotherhood would have more.
Oh, you mean your enemy's enemy is your friend? I like that idea.
Yeah, you know, the Great Kingdom's closer. to them than
But
the
aren't
Sea
the
Princes.
Iron Gate or the Iron League too good for the? They will be, but I
It'd be a very
totally
short
very interesting
alliance.
idea.
It's not easy to dismiss 100 years of torture,
Yeah.
you know, at the endless death.
Yeah.
So,
but I like the idea that at least you can have like decide to not fight each other and like a truce while there is a bigger enemy, bigger fish to fry. Yeah.
You know, the Scarlet Brotherhood got their hands on the Sea Barons and the Medivh and
I have several stuff like that in my campaign too. That your enemy's enemy is your friend.
And then they can turn on the Iron League later.
Yeah.
You know.
I like it.
You gotta, but you have to put yourself in the mindset of the Scarlet Brotherhood. They're not all about conquest, right? They're about racial purity and ruling, and eventually eliminating non-swell, right? Yeah. So it's a long game. So they'll make this elves and dwarves kill humans, and humans kill elves and dwarves, as long as the swell don't get killed.
Yeah,
that's
and I see them as insular and isolationist rather than extrovert conquerors.
So, right, that explains why they go after the Lordship of the Isles and the Sea Princes. You know, they're trying to accumulate swell.
That's right, their population.
So they would want the Duchy of Ernst, for instance.
That's right. They'd want Keeland as well, because there's quite a few there, and the Grand March. And,
But it might also be another pure Sul nation is not something they can come in and conquer right away.
They can't. They don't have the people.
But can we agree that hardly anybody knows this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is not common knowledge.
No, it's another missed opportunity. Greyhawk Wars to unite the barbarian lands and add a bajillion Sul barbarians and their navy to the cause.
Well, they actually tried, right? They said they tried, but the barbarians rejected the overtures, right? The barbarians said, you guys are weak and you're magic and you're this and you're that, everything we don't like about the old empire. So they kind of rejected that out of hand.
It will be interesting to see. I would love to see the interaction between the chiefs up of the barbarians in the Thelondrian Peninsula and versus the Scarlet Brotherhood. They're ideologically as far
well, the Arnold Schwarzenegger types up there call them girly men. So
exactly, and say
to
that
make a deal.
Screw you and your heritage, meaning we are the true.
Yeah, it's almost like Cord talking to Cyril, right? You got Cord on one side, you got Cyril on the other side. It's like, work out a deal. Are you kidding me? Seriously?
Yeah. So it will be fun. So so I think that that might be one of the big disappointments for the Scarlet Brotherhood. They might outreach, trying to befriend or conquer or whatever, and realize the other Sul are not really interested in these stupid rednecks down there who don't know what to believe, so to speak, and have their own ideas about everything, and the other ones have developed for hundreds of years themselves.
The way I see this going in my campaign is that it's going to be a great power competition between the Scarlet Brotherhood and their allies and Keoland and their allies to see who truly represents the Sul Empire. Yeah. You know, the next generation of it.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of the Sul, well, Ernst have it to some degree, but I mean, the barbarians up north, they're kind of their own thing now, not ancient Sul. It's not.
No,
doesn't seem to be the big thing for them. It's like they have a new identity, and that's what they thrive in, so to speak.
And if you would have fun going back to the fact that we're talking about the high seas, because you got that lost colony.
We always go down that rabbit hole with the Scarlet Brotherhood.
Yeah. So then you got that lost colony in the middle of the ocean somewhere that for fun is there, and these guys might be the real inheritors and descendants of the successor state of this Swell Empire, because they might have founded it when the empire was at its height. Yeah, and these guys show up, and then you can have a lot of fun. You have a third player in the mix.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has a good claim anymore. Even the Larara Sul drinking too much mother's milk.
Oh.
Yeah, but
All right, so let's go further south on this, the Isle of Dread area. Someone tell me about the Crimson Fleet. I know nothing.
Savage Tide.
The Crimson Fleet is a black. These guys, this Crimson Fleet are the vilest of vile pirates.
Okay.
That's how you figure it, right? The guys that even the Scarlet Brotherhood are looking at going, maybe not. Right?
Nope.
They're they're the demons of the evil fiends, right? Chaotic evil. They do what they want, take what they want.
Yeah, they weren't. They were too rotten even for Port Toli.
Yeah.
How big's the fleet?
They actually, in the Scarlet Brotherhood, they say there's several dozen ships, right? I mean, I found that was I found that was a little bit high, but you know,
I have
Well,
them
we
at
don't,
a
we don't know the
medium.
quality of those ships either.
yeah.
So these are the Visceral Pirates, basically. Whereas Sea Princes are government backed, these are pirates on their own. Whatever you think of pirates of the Caribbean, they're those pirates, right? Okay,
Right.
all right.
Yeah, but they're not the nice Jack Sparrow guys.
Crazy Jack Sparrow.
So-
yeah.
No, these guys are more like the crew of the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Very mutated. No, in how I played it in my campaign is the Crimson Fleet are the cast-offs, the mutineers. Yeah, from any fleet, they just all go there because it's the last resort. And so, like, there is a pirate code that, Q-Land, Sea Princes, whatever, kind of share alike with slight differences. But down in the Crimson Fleet, it's like they've broken every rule at some point. And they flaunt the code.
Okay.
Yeah, even other pirates don't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
So and are they mostly in the Vahuna Ocean? Is that
Pirate Isles.
Yeah.
the Pirate Isles? Okay.
Yeah.
What else is down there?
It's whatever you want. Whatever you want at the end of the day. Nothing's written. Right?
Nothing's
I mean,
written.
You can put whatever you want down there.
So there's no
Nothing.
other government organizations down there that have shipping running through there that is mentioned.
Not besides the Isle of Dread itself.
You have the Mist Kingdom.
Mist Kingdom is dragons.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's
So-
fandom, right? That's fandom.
That's what?
I'm
Fandom.
not sure exactly where it comes from.
No, that's from Scarlet Brotherhood.
Brotherhood.
Yeah, I think
All right. So,
yeah.
Gary, explain to me what you actually, when you did that magazine article, what you did with little tweaks that you put in the Isle of Dread and that.
Yeah, so one of the
Greyhawk
things,
did.
by the way, this is just an interesting thing to note. If you put up Mike's map, okay, you see,
I'm leaving it up here. Yeah.
if you see Mike's map, he has an island there that's not on Anna's map.
All right. Let me go to the big one.
Yep.
And show me which one we're talking about here.
What's that?
Dun, dun, dun. Okay.
Let's see.
I see the Pirate Isles.
Okay.
Sorry, I keep looking over there because I have it on the wall.
To the east of the Pirate Isles, there's an isle that's almost 250 miles in length.
I see that.
That isle was the one that Eric and I were going to use as the Isle of Dread.
That's in the glossography.
Yes, that isle is from the glossography, so it's canon. It's on page 18.
I don't
Okay.
think it has a
And-
name.
It does not have a name yet.
Mm.
But then when we discussed some ideas and we thought, no, let's leave that one alone
Go further.
and let's go just below the page 18 map and put the Isle of Dread
I see it. Yeah.
right on the edge of it. Because I hate when someone retcons something and puts something right in the middle where you thought there was nothing and suddenly
Okay.
something. So
Okay.
we said, okay, let's put the Isle of Dread. So if you look at Mike's map, his map has it exactly right. That's where the Isle of Dread really is. That is the exact size of it. It is huge. It's almost 300 miles in
Mhm.
length.
Okay.
So 100 miles wide. So it's
It's a haul.
it's the size of a small kingdom,
Small, yeah,
a small
okay.
realm.
Right.
So what we decided was, if you draw a ring from the center of the Vahun Ocean and include the Isle of Dread, and wrap it around Hetmonaland and the Amidio jungle, that was the Ulman Empire.
Okay.
And what was the Ulman Empire? It was a series of city-states founded by the same people that, had similar culture, but did not recognize each other politically as anyone superior to anyone else. So these city-states acted almost like different countries would in the Flanaess. They're not. So they began to war with each other, and they had internal cultural developments that caused them to fall. But we decided that the Isle of Dread, so we changed the race that was in the original X1 module to Ulman.
Okay.
We left most of the other aspects of the island alone, the Great Wall and the ruins and the
Okay.
the fauna that were already there.
Arenias and Castas.
Exactly, because that was all cool stuff, and some of those only became D&D monsters from old D&D because of this transition. So then I had to. So in Dungeon 112 or 114, I can't remember which, I wrote a backstory that put it, in the setting. Basically decided that around 700 years ago, the Ulman who lived there, which were the last untouched kingdom of the Ulman. I mean, it was still majestic, gold, pyramids, the whole bit.
Okay.
They found this black pearl in the sea, which had been cultivated to be, bigger than a human head. It was like massive. But it turns out that the people who cultivated under the sea were the Kopru, a race that follows Demogorgon. And they have been wanting to bring low that empire, for centuries. They despise the humans on the Isle. So when the pearl was brought up onto land and presented to everybody and worshipped, it let loose what we call the Savage Tide. So the Savage Tide is essentially a gate opening mechanism where, the plane of Demogorgon on the Abyss gets to drip a little bit into our world, releasing things like dinosaurs, other monsters that we've not seen in Untold
Isn't the
Millennium.
Savage Tide would also affect the Crimson Fleet?
Yes.
Yeah, it has some sort of mutagen problem.
Yeah, because I posit that they weren't always that demon loving, that this is a recent development.
Right. And it seems like their interactions with the Isle have kind of created this development. So when James came along and he saw that, so it was basically something that happened in the past, and we used it as explanation for why the Isle had this Skull Island, feel to it. Why it was able to break all the rules and have monsters that you wouldn't expect. He looked at that and said, oh, you know what? We're going to do it again. We're going to launch a new Savage Tide 700 years into the future and base it out of characters who are coming out of Sasserine. So they found a colony on the Isle of Dread called Farshore. So Farshore is probably the furthest south human town in the entire of Flanaess humans in the entire setting. So
I've seen Farshore Adventures. Is that the same Farshore?
I don't know.
I've seen it. It has to be. Okay, cool. I got to check
now
that out.
I think it has an episode or two in Savage Tide in Dungeon Magazine, and maybe a backdrop in Dragon.
Okay.
I remember helping to write the backdrop.
Yeah, you go to Farshore in the Savage Tides.
Yeah, part of the adventure is you have to help the locals build up the defenses of the place.
Yeah, because they're raided by 3 pirate ships.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is on the southern part of the southernmost area of the Isle of Dread. Very interesting.
There's actually a couple of islands in the Island of Dread.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Not just
around
one.
it. Okay.
Yeah, it's one massive isle and a few smaller isles.
Okay. Wow. So,
and interestingly, I made one of those isles disappear, and it is the Isle of the Ape. Zagig took it
and moved it to wherever in a pocket.
Moved it to a pocket plane. Yeah,
Okay.
Demi.
Very cool.
So this is where we get interested. So a lot of people are always asking, are there caravels and galleons and all this in Greyhawk, right?
Yep.
And what's the level of technology, the shipbuilding and on Earth and blah, blah, blah. So the thing is that you need to separate Earth or the Flanaess from real world, right? You have to look at what technologies do you want in the Flanaess to have fun as a gaming world. So you have to have Latin sails, right? Because otherwise, if you only have square sails, you're not sailing upwind.
Yep.
Which means you can't visit the Isle of Dread. You can't get there. Because, on rowboats or even galleys that row, anything further than 100 kilometers away from port is not feasible because you can't row that far with a big enough crew, particularly on an adventuring party, right? It doesn't make sense. So you need lateen sails to be able to sail upwind. So that's one technology that your ships have to have. You have to have that technology of Flanaess to enjoy it as an adventuring setting. So I think when you look at the shipbuilding in the Flanaess, you have to look at it from what would you want to have it usable as an adventuring setting, and that's technology you got to put in there. Lateen sails don't make a big difference except for the fact that you go up and down against the wind, right? So you got to look at little things like this, and then you build your ships from there. And it might not look exactly like modern, caravels or galleons, but it works to play in, right? So,
very cool. So, all right, so you have the Isle of Dread was created, and then James Jacobs ran with the Savage Tide setting. All right, and then created basically the entire story plot line arc for Savage Tide. He created Scuttle Cove as well, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and that is not a Crimson Fleet base. That's another pirate haven, basically.
No, it's sort of the homeland of the Crimson
It
Fleet.
is the homeland. Yeah. Okay.
They might be spread over other ports, yeah.
It is their main base.
It is their main base.
Because the headquarters for the Crimson Fleet is a bunch of wrecked ships lashed together.
All right, so all right, this is my question then. If we go to this map here. Okay. Scuttle Cove is not on that map. Okay, I always get poor Elizabeth and Scuttle Cove mixed up.
Go back to Mike's map.
Yeah. Okay, go back to Mike's map. I always get them both mixed up. So let me go back to this map here.
Okay, so right in the
I see it right in the middle of those islands, Pirate Isles. Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that far away. Holy shit.
But it almost has to be for them not to have been discovered until fairly recently.
Okay.
I mean, they've been probably picking off people who sail out of the Azure Sea into the Tilva Strait for centuries or decades, but it hasn't been enough or reported back enough to create enough information for people to take action about that in the Flanaess. So,
and it's really far to get to. I mean, to punish them, you'd have to send a huge fleet, hundreds of, if not thousands of miles. It's just not economically feasible.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's perfectly reasonable that they haven't been run into very often.
All right. So now that's the main base. All righty. Because there's a lot of, James did a lot of things that I talked about when he was on. I just, now I got a picture in my head. I always thought it was closer to Sasserine, and I'm wrong.
No,
I'm thinking, it's way far away.
But you don't take that much consideration in an adventure path. You want to cool locations, and then you just basically teleport between the locations. That's how adventure paths are done. You ignore the 9 months of grueling sailing you need to do in order to get there, or overland travel.
That's a long time.
Either, so.
Yeah.
Savage Tide was really amazing though, because it did have a long voyage charted out.
You had a lot of
stops.
Exactly, a lot of stops on the way. So there were several modules or adventures that were set on the way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Another one of the large islands, right before you get to the Isle of Dread, is Ruja.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what was on there. It's not like settled or anything. It's probably a
mentioned
monster
somewhere, but there's so much confusion in the maps when it comes to that area, where and what, because I think that a lot of big islands was supposed to be Isle of Dread, and then it was moved, and it was kind of, it's a mess. Yeah, and also I did a lot of that area long before a lot of stuff were published, and I haven't updated it, so I need
Good job, Gary.
oversee that one. So thank you, Gary and Mike for Richard for filling in the blanks here. That's awesome. Yeah. I need it. I'm taking notes here. So
yeah. From what I understand, there's nothing on Ruja, nothing known at least.
No, I think he's just mentioned somewhere.
Perfect place for the PCs to found their town.
Yeah.
And Gary, that long, thin map area, that island that you were going to put Isle of Dread on, but you changed your mind on, what's there? It seems it's unnamed too.
You'll find out in the next Orth Journal.
Oh.
Nice.
It's going to be an homage to Len.
Oh, good. That's
Ooh.
awesome. That's awesome. We've been.
That is perfect.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Now, if you want to talk trade and the Scarlet Brotherhood and all this,
Sure.
the Ulman Islands, right? They're a natural blockage point, right? To protect the Flanaess from the south. For sure, the Scarlet Brotherhood has ports on those islands running blockades up and down to make sure nobody from the south goes through without paying a fee, if you will.
Right.
Right? Those are not shown probably on Anna's map, but for sure they're there.
So someone on chat earlier asked if we could talk about Narisban,
Sure.
the Ulman Islands. What do you know about that, Mike?
Well, depending on what area you're talking about, yeah, it could be a Scarlet Brotherhood controlled area. In my campaign, which I try to do more Sea Princess focus thing, I have Narisban as a neutral port. That because it's kind of in between everything. Sea Princess,
Like Tortuga.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be
Alright,
this
cool.
neutral ground where there is fighting that happens, but like you can encounter any fleet person there. So that's why I use it for.
Kind of like a Thornward.
Yes.
Thornward of the Sea.
It seems like it would be a good place to base an Azure Sea campaign out of.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Did we miss like any personalities or any? I feel this map here. I see all that mist up.
Yeah, the Mist Kingdom. Yeah. That
So.
was a way to me to obscure all the stuff I didn't put in.
Oh.
You don't know how many
Yeah.
islands there really
And there's
are.
tricks and trade stuff in the cartography trade too. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we love the kind of just put a mist over the whole thing. So yeah.
But I think it's home to Mist Dragons, right? So
Oh yeah, it is.
it
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
works. So
Mhm. Oh yeah, it works in that case. But it also good because you can kind of obscure the stuff under. But there is a layer, so there are actually islands under there. But that whole area needs to be completely overhauled with 10 or 15 years of hindsight, so to speak. So yeah.
And for those of you like Dragonborn, they could come from there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you
That's an
want to.
interesting game.
Yeah, that
What a
would be a
close
good
play.
one.
it turns out there's a lot of places Dragonborn could come up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a dungeon module called, I think it's called Glacial Inferno or something like this.
Yep.
Where you play a half dragon. There's a half dragon involved in it, which half dragons and Dragonborn, in my mind, in my opinion, in my campaign, is the same thing.
Yeah.
Glacial.
I love it too.
So Glacial Inferno. It's funny you mentioned that. It's based in Southern Ernst, if I recall correctly, isn't it? It's Lord Ellis is kicked out, is fighting on that realm, if I remember, and the adventure I'm running tomorrow night is based on after what happens after that adventure. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, because there's a lot of chain demons and other things in that, right, Rich? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I ran it a long time ago. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's based on right in the Southern Ernst, and it ties into the Ernst discussion last week too, and House Terranor. So there you go. Wow, it's funny you mentioned that adventure out of dungeon.
So if you guys want to stay away from Soul Pirates, if you go down that coast, there's a city-state called Zamaklan. That is now the last true Ulman city-state.
Mm-hmm.
So there you could have, all sorts of fun with maybe that Maztica setting.
1 second here. Let me
Using
go back
the
to Mike's.
lore and the rules from that setting.
Let's go back
That
to
is a
Mike's
good
map
idea.
and tell me where it is on this map.
So
It would be on the left edge.
All right, let me go to the big one.
I think it looks better on Anna's map.
Oh, does
it's
it?
barely on that map. It will be on the left where it kind of.
All right, so you're saying it's on
Yeah.
Anna's map, all right, which I don't have in this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's far down south. So yeah, it's
Okay.
also just a name.
One
so,
sec.
yeah.
So if you just follow the coast of the Emidio,
Oh, okay.
it's
This
basically
one.
where the jungle
Yeah,
ends.
you
Oh,
have
I
to
see
have
it.
there.
Where near that
Yeah.
shield, red shield down there. Is that
Yeah.
it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
All right. So that is still an Ulman city-state.
it is
Yeah.
the last true Ulman city-state.
Okay.
So Gary, I mean, if there's a city-state down there, and it's an original Ulman one, those guys probably traded with the Sual Empire,
They probably did.
right? 'Cause it's right around the curve before you get to that.
Okay.
the colony, the Sewell colony.
Why did the Sewell stop trading with us?
So
Where did they go?
Well, we sent emissaries, and all we found was dust.
we got 2 questions on this map here. First of all, Cold Steel Penguin asks, how about Dullstrand? That is a pirate setting. And then DM said, Anna, what is the Skull Cross thing just southeast off the Zametian coast?
That's funny that I'm asking DMs, answering DMs. That was me just having fun one day, working on the edge, and I realized that what the heck, I just keep it. So it's one of these little thing that was just a play, and I was actually developing the style for the legend and these kind of wrought iron things. And I just happened to paste it in by mistake, and I realized it's so far down in the edge, so I just kept it. So little Easter eggs that just kept it, and no one has seen it or talked to me or asked about it. So that's kind of awesome. I put it in there over 10 years ago, and this is the first
there you go.
time anyone
A first in 10 years.
Yeah, so thank you, DM, for seeing that. Yep.
All right, so what about Dullstrand, according to Cold Steel Penguin's question?
Anyone?
Well, I mean, it's a really cool isolated area of the Aerde coast.
Yeah.
So I think you could do a lot with it because it has that neutral aspect where it's not really part of anybody's realm.
Presently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the history of it is that it was built as the staging point for the Aerde to take over the Lordship of the Isles, though.
That's right. It probably was built by Admiral Latier back in the 100s or early 200s.
Yeah, I also saw it as back in the day when Grey Kingdom controlled Sundi. It was the port of Sundi, so to speak. But then when the Sundi broke off and became independent, the Aerde and Grey Kingdom kept control of Dullstrand, and then gradually, I guess, they kind of became their own thing. And that was my idea of how that developed, so to speak.
So later this week, I should have a postcard for the Lordship of the Isles posted. So I'll try to incorporate a little mention of Dullstrand.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But basically, the northern 4 isles of the Lordship Isles are mostly Auridian, Aerde controlled, and the southern 3 are mostly Sul, but they're more populous. And the city of Dukan, I pronounce it, but
Dukan?
Yeah.
It
is basically another super pirate haven. I mean, it's but it's more formal. It's not a mess like Port Toli. This place is like
I also have the Lordship split into 2 fleets in my articles. There is the Sulward Blockade and the Dukan Armada.
Interestingly, that Sulward is essentially named as protection from Sul.
Lord.
Yeah.
Very cool.
There are tons of if you like a Caribbean style adventure, this is a perfect place to do it.
Yeah.
You've got the Sul, which could be like Spanish, or vice versa. The Auridians could be the Spanish, and the Sul could be the English pirates. And then you've got the poor Ulman natives who have been exploited by both sides.
Yeah.
Being exploited is a very strong word. The Swell do not like that.
I'm sorry. They gave their involuntary assistance.
Yeah.
That's better.
It's good that we have a Sewell advocate here. Yeah. It's awesome.
So we barely touched, and Mike, I want to ask you about this, the Barbarians. So do you see the Barbarians just are they raiding like Vikings did in the 800s and 900s, or are they trading only in their boats, or are they using their boats for sealing? What's going on up there?
Yeah, I think you kind of covered it there.
All of it. Okay.
So in the ICC, a lot of just general fishing, sealing, whatever. In the south, probably a lot of the same thing. Yeah, they do have the North Province coast to raid. In my campaigns, my wars, they fought many times over, and the Sea Barons is like as far as they can get. So the ultimate goal is to take over the Sea Barons, and then they have a staging point to it, then attack inland.
The Sea Barons are definitely undercovered by almost everybody. I mean, it's such a cool place for competing rival, barons who are also admirals. I mean, it's an amazing setting.
I know very little about it, so
Yeah, me too.
So the frost and the ice and snow, individually they can't do much more than raid a town and then run home.
okay.
But if they all band together, they could get a really big invasion fleet, basically, and actually
Well.
hold one of those ports. So,
If
like
the-
it might, yeah,
if
like
the five
Belport
if the
or-
five become one.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
right,
Well, David Leonard wrote some really good articles on those, like the postcards for those three,
yeah,
Yeah.
those three barbarians.
I'm glad
And
he
he
did
gave
that.
each one a distinct feel, so it's pretty neat. The Sea Barons postcard isn't written yet, so I'm waiting for the author to provide it.
Yeah.
That
Me
one,
too.
that one I'm curious about. But
Mhm.
So if you want more references, one's up, and I have these. This is a Sword and Sorcery Necromancer Games. It's called Dead Man's Chest, 3rd edition. Really some great stuff in here. Charts, references. Really a nice. If you're into feats and prestige classes, it's in here. Monsters. There's some adventures in here. Really, everything that this company did back in the day was fantastic. So that one, and then after that, I have this. This was also 3rd edition. This was Legends and Lairs, D20 Seafarer's Handbook. So another cool one. This one you get fairly cheaply, I believe. There it is. It just popped up. So another good one as far as with seafaring going. If you want a little different take on things,
And then
gives you
there's
two
oh,
others.
yeah.
This is Fantasy Flight game, so it gives you some extra references. So I tie that in. So I got for my reference books, it's these 3 that I use more than anything as far as for seafaring. Oh, Storm
Then
Rack.
you have the standard
Storm Rack.
3.5 Storm Rack. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Forgot about that.
Yep, I don't have that.
That's the official D&D third edition or 3.5 seafaring reference
Cool.
guide.
Have to wonder how much different. I imagine.
I cobble rules together from every edition.
Same here.
Yeah.
You know,
Same
Yeah,
here.
it has the
I've used-
it's yeah.
Blue box.
It has a little bit of
Yeah.
everything in it. A
All
lot of
kinds of stuff.
both monsters and rules for how doing magic items and different ships and yeah.
If
what you
anybody
can
has
expect.
Green Rodin's Freeport material, that's also a good.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, that's
source.
an old one. I have it sitting here somewhere. I lost the box, but I
is
have the
that
content
is
somewhere.
that Promise? Chris Promise?
I think so. Yeah.
I contacted Green Ronin, asking him to try and get him on the show. They upped it to sending it him directly. Haven't heard anything back, so
Okay, but
I
that
did
would
reach
be-
out to
That
him.
would be great.
I mean, he wrote the Slavers with Sean Reynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
he has got a lot of connections, especially in this area.
Yep. So, I have reached out to him, try and get him on.
Yep.
So,
I don't know what the population of Freeport is, but it could make a drop-in setting for a lot of these cities down south.
Yeah, it's a big city if I remember. It had a huge map back in the day. Yeah.
that might be another one of our initiatives there, Gary. Take all these third-party cities and
Yeah.
put a Greyhawk equivalent to them so that
hmm
DMs can just grab.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We also have that module Hidden Shrine down there in Hitbana Land.
Oh yes, the hidden shrine of Tamawakan or whatever.
So if you get your PCs on a ship, that's a place to go.
the original C1, that's the first competition module, according to the C series. And we've also reached out to the author of that to try and get him on the show too. Is that Harold Johnson?
I believe so.
So
I'm just floating around Anna's map looking for cool things. So another Azure Sea location that's interesting is Drawmidge's Undersea Lair.
Yeah.
So one of the Circle of Eight lives
underwater and
underwater,
not far from Saltmarsh, actually. Correct? It's
No,
not that
too
far.
closer to
Like-
Gradsoul, I think.
Closer to
But
Gradsoul.
Yeah. It's like 100 miles from Gradsoul or 200 something miles from or 300.
But I'd
from
call that
Saltmarsh.
all the same vicinity.
Didn't you just, Gary? Didn't you say that Maztica was could be the last Ulman city-state?
Well, Xanaclan was Mastica.
Okay. Yeah. Is there? Yeah. So there you go, Canadian. There wasn't. That's the equivalent of Maztica equivalent in Greyhawk. So, are there any tales of hidden or unmarked islands?
Just the one I'm working on? No.
Well, when you're using 30-mile hexes, undoubtedly there is.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's another thing to point out. When you look at the Azure Sea, it's empty, right?
Yeah, there just should be some.
But that's partly because Darlene's map wasn't really meant to cover features that are that small.
No, 30 miles is the smallest thing that basically exists on that
Yeah,
map.
so if you need to put an island on this sea, just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
plenty of room.
Plenty of room for
It won't
that.
affect anything.
Yeah.
It can even be tidal. You know what I mean? It could be something bizarre.
Yeah, and Pearl Sea too.
Yeah.
And even on the other side, on the Oljet Sea and the Erdi Sea.
Yeah, and up in the Dromage, you have the pinnacles of Azur Alk or whatever, however you pronounce it.
So yes. So I created a little island right in the Woolly Bay. Here you go. And I put it on the map. Let me show that real quick. Remember Miraculous Isle? So here we go. I'll show you. If I have it here, I thought I had it. Here, okay, so here it is. If you see the Hardby,
yes, yeah.
All right, so yes, Miraculous Isle only comes up during certain conjunctions of Selene and Luna, and at the right tidal time. And apparently, this was a retreat for our favorite crazy Zagig had a summer home retreat on that island, and I did a little adventure there. So there you go. So you can place an island anywhere you want, on the map there. So just to show that to you.
Yeah, you don't have to go too far from Greyhawk to get piracy.
Exactly. And that's the thing we didn't even touch.
The Slavers. Yeah.
The Slavers, Hardby. Hardby actually has my main antithesis in Hardby is allied with the Slavers. It says right in the Slavers reference because she thinks that that's going to be a way to thwart Greyhawk. So
I've always had this question, and maybe Mort has his theory. Why blue? Why is a town or city called Blue? What does it mean?
It's a good question in Pomarsh. Mm-hmm. I have no idea. It's
for the longest time, I thought it might be a typo or something, but.
Yeah, but what is the original source? Is it on Darlene's map?
No, it's on the original map. Absolutely,
it's on the original map. Yeah,
Stoneheim and Blue are the ones on the map.
It's mentioned as a Kioish settlement originally, I think.
It's ruled by Svarts.
That's a good one.
I think it could be something as simple as maybe there's a blue pool or a harbor.
Blue water, people said.
Someone who
like
been
blue
in landlubber
Puppet says we name things badly. That's true.
Yeah.
Highport and Blue, yep.
It could be like the Blue Grotto, right? I mean, maybe the water is blue.
Yeah.
Or someone was watching that stupid Blue Lagoon movie when they were making it, or who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I guess that was in the 80s. So this was the 70s.
That was
So Anna, why don't you check on your handwritten map and see if there's notes there?
On my handwritten
Len map.
From Len.
Oh, yes, we have to.
Len's map.
Len's map. And see if there's any notes around blues. Maybe there's a note.
No,
on
I
there.
don't. No maps of the Pomarsh. Only Lendor Isles. Well, hang on a second.
No, the whole Greyhawk map.
Yeah, we have to.
The whole original Gary Gygax's Greyhawk map that he had.
Yep, we have to.
It's worth its weight.
Get it out. Yep.
Something.
See what we got here.
I was just curious if there was any notes on that, answering that question in that area. But
it's another pirate town, and we've got so many pirate towns.
Well, it turned into a pirate town, right? It wasn't originally a pirate town,
and
after the Hateful Wars.
Map, it's canon, so we can't complain. Then we can't.
Yeah, see if it says blue on that map.
Hang on a second.
We haven't even mentioned one of the second biggest port on the Azure Sea, which is Iron Gate.
Yeah.
Yep. Hang on a second. Blue, and it's just on the. It's actually 3 different pieces of paper that
all taped together right at that spot.
Yeah, and that spot. So, but I think it says blue. Yeah.
It says blue on it. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. It's B. You can see a B. No, you can see an L, but you can see a B. And hang on a second. Yeah, you can see a B and something that looks like V or U and an E at the end.
It could have been something else, and it just because it was in that crossover point, it looked like blue, and that's when Darlene did it.
Take it.
There you go. Please scan that map, Pupik. We're deciding what's gonna happen to it. So,
but this map there is scans. Alan had a scan posted on his website and stuff, so I've seen scans of this map for years.
So wait a minute. So Canadian says, could it have said bloom, and the M got removed because of the blooms?
That no,
No.
the UE at the end, and it starts with a B and UE at the end, so that is confirmed. But in between there's an opening for whatever letter.
Yes, it means blave, which means to bluff. Yeah. nice Princess Bride reference there.
Yep. And we have Stonheim, almost down by the coast.
Yeah, Stonheim.
Yeah.
She did an adventure back in the 80s in Stonheim. Yeah.
Oh, it's hard to read. So yeah, it could be stone. Yeah, stone or yeah, it's Stonheim.
Stonheim,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
That map, when we will get it out to everyone once we decide what the final verdict on what's going to happen to that map is. Then we'll make it available to everyone in a scan.
But there are good scans of it already. I've seen several online and stuff. So yeah.
Cool.
Oh, so it's already out there.
Oh yeah, the scans of it is already out there.
But not the
original. But I think that there are some additional notes here and there that I didn't see on the original scan that might be Len that written that in.
Yeah, really
and
cool.
There's
now we know.
There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. So yeah, the hobbits in Keelland, for instance, and Sylvan elves in Dreadwood, and.
So speaking of maps, this might be the good last topic.
Okay, cool.
We have one final frontier which we haven't covered, which is what's under the Azure Sea.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So, we have glimpses of it, especially on the western coast with the Sahuagin and some of the other races there. But when you go back and look at the lore, there's mentions of sea monsters and sea races and a whole bunch of things that might exist under that sea. So, if you drain the water like that TV show where they, drain the water from a sea and see what it looks like underneath, it might be an entire campaign setting down there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are definitely sea elves and Mokatha, right, underneath the sea.
There are.
It's not marked because they're allies.
I mean, given the, mid-latitude, low-latitude nature of it, you'd expect to see most of the sea races in here.
Sea dragons. There's a kraken in the Azure Sea.
Just one?
Well, there's one who claims to be the ruler of the Azure Sea. Right?
And it's nice subtropical water, so it's kind of cozy waters to live in too.
Yeah, my good friend Aeolus from Cannon Fire used to run an entire undersea campaign.
Did he really?
Aquatic races and things. Yeah.
That is awesome.
He was in here for a bit, then he disappeared.
With Eric, I created a Hierophant Druid that is sort of the protector of the Azure Sea.
Was that why you asked that question on the Druids the other day?
I wanted to know if the hierarchies or the rules for higher Druids had changed over the years. Because I'm definitely doing it with a 1E focus.
Yeah, they seem to become less strict. There's less talk about mortal combat and stuff to advance up to higher levels and stuff.
I never took the combat super seriously. I thought you could either take that challenge, or you could just advance in level, but you'd lose the chance to take that challenge.
Yeah, I always thought if you were a 9th level druid, you were like a really paranoid guy because you didn't know where your challenge was coming from, right? You'd be hiding out all the time and nobody could find you. Not to get beaten up out of the blue.
We did it so that that combative stuff started at 12th. Because that's true. What's that called? Not Grand Druid.
There's Great Druid.
No, well, that's 15th. 15th, 14th, and 13th are the big ones, and then 12th is just Druid, isn't it? 12th is just Druid.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started at 12th.
Yeah.
Because monks, they start at like 7th level, all the combative stuff, which is really crazy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like if I were a monk, I'd be lying about my level. I'm not a master of flowers. I'm a master of the petal. Like I don't know. Why are you talking to me? Go pick on somebody else.
Right? It's interesting. Can you advance without getting the formal position in the order, so to speak? Or...
No, you got to beat up the guy, and then he loses a level, and you gain his level.
Okay.
So
So you can't learn that without killing him first. So to speak.
I mean, That's got to have come from Gygax watching a lot of those Saturday afternoon kung fu theater movies.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
watching David Carradine wander the West in the '70s. Excel said, "Tangent. Anything of note around the Bakori Coast or Janisib Islands?"
Well, I guess we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the other.
The Northwest Coast.
Oh, the
other
Baclooni
high
are still a
sea.
topic? The Baclooni are still a topic? I thought we discounted them. Well, I've been discounting them for years.
Rich,
well, they have a coastline.
Now is the time when you leave.
But they have a coastline, so in that sense, they're kind of fair game for today, I think.
I mean, they have
islands. Oh, sorry, go on.
There's a lot of cool stuff in that small bit of ocean that we can see. Starting with the pinnacles of Azor Alk, which are home to not only
Alk Adventures,
a hero power demigod that's sleeping, but a bunch of paladins sleep with him there in stasis for when they're needed, and apparently a lot of dragons. Yeah.
Well, there's a sea dragon, right, that made a deal with the ruler of Zeef, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that, or I don't know if it's a deal or he's fighting against the fleet of Zeef or something like this.
Yeah, and the two big island chains, the Atafad Islands and the, I don't know how to pronounce them, islands are...
I don't know how to pronounce them.
Kayabureis or something like that. Yeah.
There's like 100 islands in one of them.
And those are kind of very difficult because they've been messed up in one way or the other on various different maps. So mine was just like a best guess, and it's kind of that's kind of. And the other interesting thing with the Dramid Ocean is there an opening to the west or not? That I think is the big question when it comes to that ocean, because on a lot of the maps and especially the
here's something to consider. I think is that it's almost at the same latitude as the ICC.
Exactly.
So you cannot have a warm water, Arabic like campaign setting up there. It just doesn't make sense unless there's some artificial. But wouldn't it be cool to have a Sinbad-like character up there going on adventures? I mean, that would be pretty fun. So
you'd have to have big parkas.
Yeah, but I don't see them as specifically warm up there. I just see them as kind of different from the Flanaess. I mean, these are different.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You have to take those climatic considerations into their logical conclusion, and you probably don't end up with people wearing, the same clothes you would wear in 12th century Cairo.
No, but take it the Central Asian deserts and stuff. They are cold as hell. You freeze your butt off in Mongolia and a lot of the inner deserts of Asia and stuff. They are so if you want to have cultural inspiration, you take that. They don't have much coastline. That's the problem. But they have a lot of dry desert like kind of conditions that are cold as hell for a large part of the year, and then hot.
So I kind of take my cues from the competition between the Portuguese and the Spanish, where they would create fake charts in order to fool each other into what they had discovered. So I think the Bacloonish have no incentive to let the people of the Eastern Flanaess know exactly what's over there. So we may be disinformed.
Okay, so we have to inform ourselves by creating the real map here. Then.
You got to send some PCs.
Yeah. Yeah, someone adventure
cool,
and then tell me what it looks like and we can map it. Yep.
So I always say this 100 times. We've already gone over time, which is great,
Okay. Yeah.
which is really cool. So why don't we round table one time and see what everyone would like to say in a closing thought or a thought we haven't discussed or something like that. What do you think, Rich? What do you got there to close out the topic tonight?
Well, I think we need to have another talk just about the underseas.
We could do that, man. I have no problem doing that. That would be awesome.
That's an area where there's very little on that. Actually, in lore, right?
You don't want to talk about the Sul?
The undersea Sul, I guess, maybe, but
I'd love to have it back soon, and we do a topic just on the Sul in particular, man. No, there's no drawing tonight, Amy. It's tomorrow night. It's
I I think Oromir is coming out with his Sul.
Whoops, I did that again. I hit the wrong button. My bad. Jeez, Jay, you dumbass. Oh my gosh. There you go.
I was doing it at least once.
I did it twice tonight. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rich. I apologize.
Ornier announced this morning that his script, when he read it out and recorded it, ran to about an hour.
Yeah, for the Sul. He has remember he does a sig for every race, so he has one on the Sul all about ready. So.
But I think you could do a series of legends and lore focused on one of each cultures, and then go to the demi-humans and the humanoids after that.
Demi-human culture would be neat because there's very little written on those.
Yeah.
You might have to combine all the races into one legend.
Especially the halflings and the gnomes are kind of mistreated in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that Gygax wrote hobbits on his draft map, or somebody wrote hobbits.
There's hobbits on, but this one is probably, that map is so old that it's before the being sued and yelling, before the Tolkien estate came out and yelling and screaming at them. So that map is older than that. I think it's pre-publication of AD&D, definitely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the hobbits were. Yeah. Can't use that term. Ents and hobbits. Nope. So, and then you just put the word tree in front of Ents. Hey, we got tree Ents instead of Ents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Hey, yep. Smart. So, yeah. Mike, what do you got to say, man, about this topic?
Well, someone earlier at the beginning of the stream mentioned Scott Agnew's Greyhawk rebooted thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's following that, but they have their own map on there, which has really got kind of stoked me because it does open up the Backlash lands to the rest of the continent by pretty much removing the mega
took
continent.
away the left half of Eric, so to speak. They made it the little rumpy continent.
Did you Patreon it, Mike? Did you get it by Patreon?
Yeah, I did. Okay. I did. But he previewed those maps on some of the Facebook groups.
Oh, yeah.
So if you haven't seen it yet, they're really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have not really worked on anything for the last week, but this discussion has kind of now given me some new ideas. I'll try to come up with some new high seas articles. I don't know.
That'd be awesome.
I'll think of something.
I am always, and I think Gary would be up for this, always interested in some Sea Prince's Keeland modern tension articles or maybe skirmishes, discussions on battles, because, that would be cool.
Well, Mike has, 17 or so provinces to discuss in the Sea Princes.
Yeah,
right,
that's like
just pick
5
one, right?
episodes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm planning on doing a map and backdrop of Monmurg.
Great, cool.
Nice.
So it's something I began 19 years ago. And while I wasn't able to find my original notes, I did find the map and have just been recreating the notes from memory. And it should be pretty interesting.
When do we see that on Cannon Fire?
Well,
someday.
Earth Journal or somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, good.
That'd be awesome to see.
Waiting.
It's good. It's good to see. There's stuff rolling on in the future here. So, so Anna, what do you think about the this topic here?
It's very interesting, and also. Thankfully, from this discussion, realized I have a lot of homework. I knew I had homework. Now I know more what to dig into. So that will come in a future map update. I need to rework the Asura, but it's been so far removed from my campaigns and stuff, so I haven't paid much attention.
Right.
And I actually did a lot of it before Savage Tide or roughly before Savage Tide and stuff came out. So there's been a lot of tons of additional material and stuff and that come up afterwards, and I haven't revised it, so that's my bad. I should have. So
Anna, you never worked on a map that included all of Hepmonaland?
Well, yes, I have. Yeah.
But you never released it.
No, it didn't get that far. It was actually, there's because that was like 2-3 years ago. I said
Yeah.
I'm going to do it because I was waiting and waiting to get like the proper new tools in order to map things properly, so to speak. And when they didn't materialize, I realized that what the heck, I just have to recreate my old Bryce style in Photoshop instead of using Bryce, because I can basically do these maps in Photoshop that looks like the current version of the Flanaess map. I don't need fancy 3D to do it. I can do a top-down version in Photoshop from the get-go. And I've gotten so used to Photoshop over the years that I now can recreate that even better in Photoshop. So that was my idea. But then two things happened. One, that I got a lot of commissions and other work to do, Southlands and Midgard and a bunch of other stuff. So that took a bunch of time. All of a sudden, I became truly professional. That was one deal of it. And then the tools to actually do real 3D maps came online. And then I realized that now I don't want to use 20-year-old technology, reproduce 20-year-old technology. I want to recreate the Flanaess areas in true 3D with all the details and in full glory, so to speak. So then things kind of shifted and people start asking me, and we needed to redo for the, yeah, there was a lot of areas and rework, and people get, and my map got so popular that all of a sudden I got like 1 or 2 errata per week that people told me that was, so I started and had like 300 and something things to change in my change log. So I prioritize that rather than dig into Hepmona Land, but it's been there and I have the embryo of it. I worked kind of a couple of weeks on it. So it can definitely be a Hepmona Land that could be a true companion to the Flanaess map. It's there, but I don't know, should I spend 3-4 months on working on that, or should I work on redoing Flanaess stuff instead, so to speak?
Well, you got your Shieldlands project.
Exactly, and that's the other thing. Now I want to run my own campaign again, and I want to do it.
You got to do that.
Yeah, and put in a new generation of maps. And before I was like, nah, I probably need to recreate it the old way. But now the technology and computers are getting so damn good that I can basically do high quality maps right out of the bat. So I'm getting there. So, and the Shieldlands map is kind of proving it. So it's concept that is starting to be proven, and I want to start creating areas like Lendor Isles, Ratik, and others, and recreate Flanaess in 1,000 times better resolution than what currently is. So that's the idea. But it's a priority. If people say that no, work on Hepmona Land, then I can do that too. But I would like to dig deeper into modern technology and use that rather than to recreate 20-year-old stuff, so to speak. So but it is it's basically up to how much time I can put on this.
Well, that's
my patrons now. I can put a lot of time on it. So, but it's still, I can't do everything at once, so to speak. So it has to be one or the other. So yeah.
You can,
I think with all the people listening, one of them's a high-level mage who casts Simulacrum on Anna.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we can squabble over which way to do it. Yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
And it's got so much going on, and it's just
I have a bunch of and I have some little Christmas extras and stuff coming.
Awesome.
Too, so yeah,
throwing that in there. So
she needs some apprentices, hopefully not evil ones, but
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm looking out for them, and soon I will probably have enough monetary incentive that I can start. That's the goal. If I get 500 patrons, I can start hiring freelancers to help me. So that's the idea.
If I voted, I would say I would be greedy and say I would want 20% more to the south and 20% more to the west.
Yeah.
In order to get the Isle of Dread and all of Hepmona Land in there.
Yeah.
And then on the west, in order to get the Gulf of Gyar and a lot of that coast, that other Vaclunish coast.
And it's also one of the key when it comes to mapping the rest of Earth. First of all, we need to have the basic SketchUp, meaning we have to have some sort of version that can be generally accepted in the community, so to speak, because in order to start doing it more detailed, we need to have the idea where the oceans and the coastlines and stuff are, so to speak. And since this is very much uncharted territory, and there is a lot of cool ideas and very little facts. So that's why I treading very carefully when it comes to mapping the rest of the world, because it needs to. So I will put up next year, I will put up gradual proposals and stuff, and then people can heckle me and praise me and do all that stuff. And then eventually there will be some sort of consensus where hopefully a large majority enough say that that's a good compromise. Let's go with that one, so to speak, and then move forward. And when we have that, then I can start moving in. Then comes the next big question to determine if should we do, or I do smaller pieces in really high detail like I plan to do with the Flanaess, or should we do larger pieces in more kind of general area that are roughly more accurate but still roughly the same resolution as the existing Flanaess map? The problem with doing a rough map is that it's a lot of work to go in and redo it in detail. It's much faster long term to actually, if you want to map everything in detail, is much better to do one bit at a time and start in detail and then move to the big picture than to do the other way around. But technology might actually make it easier in the future to kind of go in and add detail to it, so to speak. But that's really hard. I tried many times to go in and you basically have to redo the whole thing from scratch again if you want to add more detail. Because if you take things from space and you have the real scale, mountains will not be seen. Even Mount Everest, if you go 100 miles up in space, it's just, you can't even see it's a mountain. Things that are not sticking up more than 10 miles is not even visible, not even on the horizon. So that means that it's just a blur of textures. And that kind of continental maps, look at NASA's big map on Earth. You can't even see, you can see the white areas, you can see green areas, you can see desert and forest and snow cap, basically. That's it, an ocean. You can't see any mountains or anything from space that detailed. So that is something that in most fantasy maps, you just make the mountains bigger just so you can see it. So mountains become symbols rather than the real thing. They are not accurate, so to speak. And that is okay. But when you move in, all of a sudden you realize that mountain is 300 miles long. And that doesn't make sense. Then you realize that mountain must be a whole chain or a whole mountain range. And that's when you run into problems, so to speak. Okay. And that's what I have to face on the Flanaess now, because the mountains aren't really to scale. They just look good, but they're not to scale. So that makes people disappointed to some degree.
My vote, Anna, is for the areas that have not been very well developed, like Monoland and to the west and whatnot. Just do it to a rough view to give us something.
Yeah, I will do that first. I would do some rough world sketch, so to speak, and then will be climate. First, we have to figure out where the continents and the coastlines and stuff are, and where the main islands and stuff. And when we have a model of Earth that can be useful in and accepted, maybe even liked by a large part of the community, then I can move forward, so to speak, and start detailing it. So because I don't want I want to have that squabble up front, and we can kind of have that set and say, okay, this is something that can work, so to speak. And because I know this is very, very contentious. So that's why I want to tread very carefully, because it needs to mature over time, so to speak. So.
Yeah, like I would extend the Drainage Ocean a good 500-600 miles inland, like to cover up most of Zeef, all the way down to all, like just.
There is a huge, like the Bay of Gayar, I think it's called, that runs very far south, so to speak. So maybe we can. I would love to chop up Warwick in two, because that will make cartography much easier. But I also like a challenge, and I kind of like the idea of having a huge continent, so to speak. That opens up some interesting possibilities, but make it much more difficult. But now we're getting deep into map technology here, so map discussion.
Rich, you got anything you want to shout out that you're doing, projects going on?
No, pretty much the postcards are almost done. I think we have a dozen authors left to submit, so that'll be great. We also have the module map, which Gary and I put together, so all those are up there. There's about 300 modules actually showing up on it, awesome. So that's pretty nice. Yeah. The Denizens is all but done, so that's good. We would probably have to open that up to add fiends and whatnot. So I think the next thing is maybe the city maps, I think, is the next big thing. So we're going to be launching something where you can actually, on the city's map, you'll click on a city and you'll be able to see the actual city's maps that have either from canon or fans have created that look really good. So when you're running a campaign there and you get to, let's say, Willip, you could say, what does Willip look like to just show my players at a high level? You go to Cannon Fire, pull up the map and say, look, this is it. And then, your players get a nice top view of what the city looks like. So I think that's another cool thing for DMs.
I gotta get an Altamira map done somehow.
Yep. We can work on that.
Yeah, my wife.
I'll come to that later. When I get my shout outs. Yeah.
So that's awesome though. You guys are doing a lot of great work over there.
Yeah.
It's really fantastic.
Now one thing I'm noticing and is that people are not submitting articles to Cannon Fire. I used to love reading all the various articles. So I'm getting a lot from Jason Zavoda, which is great, his stories. But usually we get, different articles. And I'm not seeing a lot of those anymore.
I can repost some of the stuff that I put on my blog too, and maybe write different versions too, because I'm writing my campaign stuff and stuff is coming first on my pages, and I will put it on my blog. But it's up to if you want it or not. So yeah.
It's sort of why I started blogging.
Yeah.
Because the pace of Cannon Fire was kind of trailing off.
And you figure the blogging has exploded. You got David, you got Tommy, John Kelly, you got Will now blogging. With Mike, the blogging has really gone.
Yeah, the only issue I have with blogging is if I'm looking up an article on a specific topic, you go to Cannon Fire, say I want to find an article, and then I find an article on Keelan, and I find a lot of information that's great. But if it's in a bunch of individual blogs everywhere, you can't. I like the crunchy stuff, like the old Dragon magazines, like Feuds and Feudalism and stuff like this. That I'm reading something. Those are the cool articles that would be nice to get from the fans who write something up. Like there's a lot of this thing about Seaton, right? A lot of people are doing a lot of work on the city of Seaton. Well, it'd be nice to have an article that somebody writes up and says, "This is my Seaton. This is how big it is. This is the magistrate, and this is how it works." And so that new players who are using Ghost of Saltmarsh could come to Cannon Fire, type up Seaton, and get a nice couple of page article on how Seaton looks like. So they don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by articles. Like we used to have a lot of those in the early 2000s. Everybody's writing articles. I think
Amy says she's submitting something shortly. So there you go.
We need to redo that again. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. I really appreciate you coming on today. I hope you had a good time.
I always have a great time.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Excellent discussion on this. I learned a lot this evening. Gary, you got anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I'm just maybe following on what Rich was talking about. I think what's great is that the Orth Journal has really exploded in size and content. So a lot of the articles I think that would have gone to a website are going there right now. Definitely if you have something that isn't very long or doesn't make sense as an Orth Journal article, you can submit it on Cannon Fire and we'll probably be
if you have a series to put out, I would suggest Cannon Fire, because then you can serialize it.
Definitely. And one of the ideas we had maybe is reviving the concept of a post fest and doing a series of articles all on the same subject. And that what was neat about that is you got to see a bunch of different takes on the same thing. So sort of playing off of Jay's idea for doing an Underdark campaign for his fundraiser, maybe we would do an Underdark focused post fest for February.
I think it's a great idea to tie it in.
So if you have a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 page idea of some Underdark location or hook or NPC in the Flanaess, write it up.
Well, Katano linked the entire Underdark map to the over Crystal Mist map, right? That should, if that's not in Cannon Fire, it should be. Right, Gitano, I think, am I correct? You did that about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. I remember seeing it. That should go in. That should be in there. That would, so, yeah. You like that name? Clean up in the Outer Isles? All right. Well, when I get to I'll start talking about what's going on. Yeah. So, but that's a great idea, Gary. That would be awesome to tie in. So let me start rolling through this so we're not here all night. How's that sound? All right. So tomorrow night, this is a homebrew adventure. It ties right into what the ironies, Rich. That adventure, Glacial Inferno. I think it's Lord Ellis has an outpost, and Lord Ellis has pushed. This is I listen and I try and incorporate stuff I learn here. So, a faction of House Terranor has been pushed out of Ernst and into the southern Outer Isles near Marstafel and the encampment and the towers of Karestein. And the group's going to be actually traveling there. There's going to be a little bit of politics involved in this. They're going to have to do some cleanup in the Outer Isles. So this will be a 2-weeker. This will be a Harby group, Reckless Indifference. So there'll be a whole tie-in. It's going to start in Harby, and I'm going to work my way up. I've got some really cool picks. But besides that, it's a big 3D giveaway for you 3D print people. The Goblin Fort here from Gamescape 3D, that picture, the STLs for that, we're going to give away. Okay, and we're going to give away the awesome Elven Treehouse STL as well. So if you have a 3D printer, yes, they're both really cool. You have a 3D printer. These files are going to be the 2 giveaways tomorrow night. This is my entire schedule through this 27th. Sunday night, Gavin 123, Greyhawk and campaign rivalries. Now, I have a lot of them in my game, and even we were talking about this after our adventure Saturday night, and I even got 2 lawful good second cousin Winchesters that can't stand each other. There's a whole bunch of them, but I need help with someone who may be an expert on this, talking about the actual Greyhawk rivalries outside of my own campaign. So if you want to join in for this discussion with Anna and me on Sunday, let me know. All right?
Yes. We
yes.
need some help.
Yes. One of my Bill or Tim may come on for this as well, but yeah, so we're going to talk about rivalries. I think it's a cool topic. Yeah, Chuck, I'm going to hit into your group again tonight. So we play the Thursday night game next Monday. So part 2 of this is Monday, not Thursday next week, okay? Because Thursday is Christmas Eve. So we're playing on Monday night. And then the other 3D print company, Infinite Dimensions, has some 2 great giveaways for Monday. And I'll show them on Sunday night, show what they are, okay? And then I probably will not stream again. Well, Wednesday we have Greyhawk History leading to 576. That is if David and Tommy John Kelly are coming on, because I want to talk about Hateful Wars. I want to talk about all that. So Mike, what do you think? Think we can handle it if they don't come on? We'll be. He's like,
Yep.
So
I don't know. That seems still really generic. Don't you want to put a cap on the other end of it?
So what do you mean?
I mean, to start with
how far we can go.
The twin cataclysms all the way to 576.
I should have put like within. So I want Turmoil Between Crowns to this. Is that all right? Does that make it?
Sure.
Is that the cap?
Yeah.
437.
Yeah.
576. Yeah.
Yes. I want to go with that because I want to know more about that history that leads up to. Oh, this is the point in the 80 Grossography that they started. I want the history as they led up to it. That's so that's what Turmoil Between Crowns to that is where I'd like to concentrate on. So hopefully we can do that. Hey Geiger, thank you. All right. We are off, of course. I'm going to be playing some games with my son and doing things, in that holiday season. So after Wednesday, I probably won't be back until Sunday. I have a special guest for any of you people who are 5e aficionados. This dude's a big name. He's been hopping on. Oops, I missed it. Where is it? All right. I have the next Gab, and after that, 124 DM's go-to references with very special guest Mike Sly Flourish on the show. Now, if you don't know who he is, okay, he's got 35,000 Twitter followers, so he's got. I have 425. So let's put that. Yeah, he's published too. Let's put that in perspective. He's just been getting into streaming, and he's going to go with his go-to stuff. I'm going to have my pile that's behind me and all my books, and we're going to just talk about how we DM and some style.
I watched some of his streams and his game preps and stuff like that. Very interesting guy to listen to.
Yeah, and he and I are just going to chat for this discussion, and that'll be the last Sunday. After the 27th, that was going to be my year in review. I'm going to do a year in review probably Monday or Tuesday that week to fit in that year in review before the new year. So we'll get to that. And then I had these out of order here. All right, we're talking about this. Here's Underdark Uprising. We have 8 channels involved and probably 9 streams because Tim's going to do something. So we got 36 hours of content for this fundraiser. Gary, that would be great if you could tie in some stuff on Cannon Fire with this. February 19th and 20th. I have reached out to my sponsors to get all the prizes for this, so we're working on that, and that'll be before the big thing that I'm working on, and that is I can skip that, and that is that's Underdark Uprising again. There you go. There are the channels that are all involved. All the logos. There's 8 channels there. And we have the time slots all set up. Oh, I thought I had it in here, but I didn't. I missed it. So. Lastly, Gary Con, if you are planning on doing something, I need to know. I want to have all the content submitted before Christmas. The deadline is January 3rd. I still have streamers that have not put in their events. All right. I've said to everyone, I need them by this weekend. Got to get this stuff in. I got to get it all planned out. They want schedules from me and all this other stuff. So please, if you considering DMing an RPG, it's not streamed. That's great, but get with me and I'll go over what you need to do. But let's get this content in because I want to approach what we did for GreyHawk with it. So tomorrow, Chuck. All right. Well, I'll get with you tomorrow, man. So that's what I got. So there you go. Thank you, everyone. Great night. Great show. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Gary.
Puppet was asking, who does your fundraising help?
Oh, it's right. Sure. And it's right at the bottom of this. This is the 3rd annual. It should be right here. We do see it right there at the middle bottom. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Okay. Is what we give to. So year 1 we raised $1,010, and that was 3 streams, and 2 of them were me and 1 was Will. We won't go, because we had the one channel not show up. We'll go into that. Last year we had 5 streams. Myself, Will, Nightheart Gaming, Praetors, Rejects, and Carlos, and we raised $2,520. And this year we have 8. So, and that adds Blue Box, add Troller Games, add Wily Hobbit to that other 5. So we're getting there. We're gonna blow that out, Chuck. I hope so. I truly hope so. And I'll have a little special thing I'm working on for the grand finale. We'll have 2 finales. We'll have a finale Friday night. Blue Box is going to finish up the Friday night. They deserve it. They got some great viewership, and then we'll finish up the Saturday night. So we'll have, we'll run all day Friday, all day Saturday, and let's hope we can really blow it out, that $2,500 out of the water. And there's always great prize giveaways from our sponsors. So thank you for bringing that up, Rich. That was, just to explain that a little bit. Great night, as always. Great discussion. Thank you all for coming on. We'll raid into Troller Games tabletop again. This is a new one, so we'll raid into this again. Will's not doing GreyHawk content. Once Will's doing GreyHawk content, then I'll alternate week to week for the 2 here. So, like I said, if you want to get in touch with me for GreyHawk Con, please reach out to me. All right, there we go. There are rewards for the DMs now, and they're pretty cool too. So a certain amount of hours, you get a badge for next year. You get all the swag. It's really thanks, Chuck. Thank you. All right, we'll see you. Let me see if I hit the right button here. I've hit the wrong button so many times tonight. What's that? What's that? have a great night, everyone, and raiding into Troller Games. Hit this up. Will J screwed us up. Nah, this one will be easy.
Where'd you get the hat, Mike?
Yeah.
Got it at a Ren Fair. And it's
almost 50. 50! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, going in. Have a good night. See you tomorrow night. Awesome. Let me just turn this off here real quick once I get to the channel. See, Rich, it's pretty easy, right?
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Have you back a lot more now, man.
Absolutely. I don't know how many topics I'm a specialist